Across ancient history, archaeological discoveries reveal structures that defy conventional timelines and challenge established narratives of early civilization. From precisely aligned megalithic sites to unexplained engineering feats carved in stone, these ancient ruins raise critical questions about lost knowledge, forgotten technologies, and advanced construction methods long before modern machinery. Carbon dating provides numbers, excavations provide artifacts, but neither fully explains the astronomical precision, massive logistics, or sudden architectural sophistication found at certain sites. Were these achievements evolutionary or evidence of knowledge systems we no longer understand? The deeper researchers investigate ancient civilizations, the more anomalies surface. History records fragments. The unanswered patterns remain embedded in stone. The outer defensive wall of Kuelap, a massive ancient structure perched precariously on the crest of the Andes, has long puzzled archaeologists with a level of refinement far beyond what the Chachapoya, an ethnic group without a centralized empire, were traditionally believed capable of. Within this entire structure, the most astonishing feature is the wall thickness of up to 5 meters, built entirely with dry stone masonry, without any kind of mortar, yet remaining remarkably stable through more than a millennium of rain fog and earthquakes. When observed directly, the wall is often mistaken for the remnants of an imperial-scale military installation, but in reality, it was constructed by a community dispersed across cloud-shrouded valleys where transporting even a single large stone block would have been an almost impossible challenge. This alone makes the story of Kuelap one of the greatest engineering enigmas of ancient South America. What do you think is the most mysterious aspect of Kuelap's thick wall construction? Share your thoughts in the comments below. First of all, the unusual thickness of the wall makes Kuelap stand out from most pre-Inca fortifications. Not only is it thick at key strategic points, but the entire outer shell, stretching hundreds of meters, maintains a consistent thickness of 3 to 5 meters, forming a massive barrier weighing tens of thousands of tons. The stones used to build the wall were roughly shaped, yet when stacked together, they interlock with uncanny stability, as if the Chachapoya possessed an intuitive ability to read natural stress directions and the compressive behavior of stone. This is particularly noteworthy because Kuelap lies in a region frequently struck by earthquakes. Tremors in the Andes are strong enough to crack many Inca structures built centuries later, yet Kuelap remains almost unmoved. Researchers believe the extraordinary thickness of the wall is part of the secret seismic forces disperse into the enormous mass of stone, rather than traveling through joints which do not exist since no mortar was used. Even more surprising is that dry stone masonry construction without any binding material was employed at such a massive scale. Typically, dry stone construction at elevations above 3,000 meters in cold, humid climates with constantly shifting ground would result in extreme instability. But here, the Chachapoya appear to have understood precisely how to use gravity and the natural expansion of stone to make the wall self-compress over time. By placing the largest blocks at the base and layering medium and small stones to fill gaps, they created an almost perfectly stable system. Each stone was positioned so its weight pressed not only downward, but also tightly against the stones surrounding it. This effect compounded throughout the entire massive wall, making it behave like a single unified block, capable of locking itself into place over centuries. Many civilizations required mortar or precision-cut stones to achieve such stability, yet at Kuelap, it emerges in a rustic yet astonishingly effective form. A major question arises: how could the Chachapoya transport hundreds of thousands of tons of stone to such a perilous location? Large limestone blocks were not readily available on the mountaintop. They had to be quarried from nearby slopes and hauled up narrow, uneven, perpetually damp trails. there is no evidence of wheels, draft animals, or pulley systems in this region. If they used human labor alone to drag and lift the stones, the workforce would have needed to number in the thousands over many years, something entirely inconsistent with the small, dispersed nature of Chachapoya society. The absence of traces such as worker camps, material depots, or large transport routes further deepens the mystery. Some theories suggest that stones were moved in small stages, passed along by hundreds of workers, rotating seasonally using natural topography for support. Even so, the logistics of moving such enormous stones to over 3,000 meters in elevation remain unsolved. The outer surface of the wall also reveals signs of advanced earth pressure management rarely seen in regional civilizations of the era. Instead of being built vertically, the wall leans slightly inward, forming a colossal inverted slope. This design helps it withstand the compression of earth from within and external forces from outside. During heavy rains, water, penetrating soil, and stone layers can exert tremendous pressure on a structure, but the inward inclination disperses the force rather than concentrating it at a single point. Notably, this angle was not the result of erosion or collapse over time. It was intentional from the beginning, reflecting an understanding of soil mechanics and gravity that seems unexpected for a cloud forest civilization. Kuelap's funnel-shaped entrances, where the thick wall narrows to a corridor barely wide enough for one person, also demonstrates sophisticated calculation of force and structural endurance. To create this design, stone layers had to be arranged not only horizontally, but also in a gradually narrowing vertical axis, requiring a far more complex stacking method. Yet these entrances have stood firm for centuries. That such a constricting structure remains stable reinforces the precision of the Chachapoya's dry stone engineering. Another perplexing feature lies in the wall's foundation. Surveys show that the wall does not have deep foundations of the conventional type. The Chachapoya did not dig downward to create a secure anchoring base. Instead, they leveled and reinforced the natural bedrock surface, placed a layer of small stones as a cushion, and then stacked the larger stones above. Normally, shallow foundations would make a structure prone to sinking or sliding, especially in a landslide-prone region. Yet at Kuelap, the wall has neither sunk nor slipped. Instead, it has stabilized itself over time thanks to the immense weight compressing into the natural surface and the interlocking dry stone system that makes the entire wall behave like a single mass. This reflects a level of insight into stress distribution and material behavior that modern researchers still cannot fully explain. Another mystery concerns the true purpose of Kuelap. With walls of such thickness, one might assume it was a pure military fortress. But many findings suggest it might have been a ceremonial center where Chachapoya elites gathered. If it was not simply a defensive installation, why construct walls of such monumental size? Some theories propose that the walls were symbolic, representing spiritual authority or social hierarchy. Others argue they were built to withstand natural disasters or defend against hostile Andean groups before the rise of the Inca. However, none of these theories fully explain the immense scale of the construction, especially when considering the limited manpower and technology available. Kuelap raises an important question about lost engineering knowledge. The Chachapoya left no written records, technical descriptions, or specialized tools. What remains is mainly stone architecture and remnants of foundations. The fact that they built a 5-meter-thick wall without mortar in the harsh environment of the cloud forest Andes suggests capabilities far beyond what is usually attributed to contemporary indigenous groups. Some researchers believe the Chachapoya may have possessed a deep local engineering tradition passed orally through generations, later lost when they were conquered by the Inca. These unrecorded traditions, highly refined through empirical understanding, may have enabled them to position stones, choose angles, and distribute weight with remarkable effectiveness. Today, when observing the remains of Kuelap, especially the colossal outer wall, it is impossible not to feel that this architecture far exceeded the practical needs of a small community. This sense of being more than necessary fuels the mystery: did Kuelap once play a far greater role than we imagine? Was it a center of authority for an elite group, or a place for extraordinary rituals? Or was a 5-meter thick wall simply the Chachapoya's interpretation of safety and durability? Whatever its true purpose, the engineering of Kuelap's outer wall remains a remarkable achievement. A wall 5 meters thick built with dry stone masonry, standing firm for centuries without mortar in one of the most difficult construction environments in the Andes. This alone makes the structure a testament to advanced technical capability. Kuelap is not merely a fortress, but a continuing enigma, a problem without a solution, regarding the technological potential of a mysterious civilization among the clouds of Peru. The Alaca Höyük royal tombs have long been regarded as one of the deepest archaeological enigmas of pre-Hittite Anatolia, not only because of their antiquity, but also due to the extraordinary grave goods that far surpass the technological level thought achievable by people of that era. When archaeologists excavated the site, they quickly realized that what appeared before them was not simply a burial ground for an elite class, but seemingly the remnants of a once flourishing civilization that vanished from history, leaving behind traces difficult to decipher through bronze, gold, and silver symbols. The tomb structures show that the deceased were often buried in a fetal position, an ancient burial custom suggesting they sought to return to the earth in a sacred ritual now lost. However, the strangest aspect does not lie in the burial tradition, but in the extraordinary refinement of the accompanying grave goods, especially the quantity and quality of precious metals found in each tomb. Their abundance is so unusual that archaeologists are forced to question the true metallurgical capabilities of the Anatolian inhabitants of this period. What do you think could explain the extraordinary craftsmanship and the unusual abundance of precious metals found in the Alaca Höyük royal tombs? Share your thoughts in the comments below. In most neighboring regions of the same era, metal remained, rare tools were primitive, and craftsmanship was still in its early stages. Yet in Alaca Höyük, gold appears exquisitely hammered into thin sheets. Silver was shaped into symmetrical ornaments, and copper was refined, to the point of forming ceremonial standards, shaped like sun's chariot wheels, and animal figures with sharply defined lines, rivaling cast works of civilizations centuries later. These were not simple decorative objects. They reveal a highly developed technological capability requiring stable high furnace temperatures techniques for removing impurities and precise control of form during casting, all far beyond what archaeology had previously recorded for this time. Remarkably, Alaca Höyük did not merely possess slightly better techniques, it surpassed expectations at a level difficult to explain. The artifacts are so refined that without stratigraphic dating, many experts would have believed they belonged to a much later period. Furthermore, the amount of precious metal in the royal tombs is extraordinarily high, while many Bronze Age cultures were still struggling with copper extraction and refinement. Alaca Höyük left behind a treasure of metals large enough to prove they controlled a stable and organized supply. Gold did not appear in small fragments, but in entire collections from jewelry to ceremonial details. Bronze was forged into geometric forms with complex symmetry, reflecting advanced aesthetic thinking and mature technical skills. This raises the possibility that the inhabitants developed a systematic metallurgical framework, perhaps a network of specialized artisans, or even a ritual metallurgical workshop reserved for the elite. But if such an institution or system existed, why has it completely vanished without a trace. One of the greatest mysteries surrounding the royal tombs is that no surface structures corresponding to the wealth of the burials have been found. There are no large palaces, no monumental temples, no administrative buildings reflecting political power. Yet beneath the ground lie royal tombs of remarkable scale, refinement, and metallic wealth, as though the entire identity of this civilization existed solely underground. This leads researchers to speculate that either the surface buildings were entirely destroyed over time, or this was a culture whose sacred burial rituals were its central focus, so much so that they devoted their best technical and material resources to tomb construction rather than living architecture. Regardless of the hypothesis, metallurgy remains at the core. Producing such vast quantities of precious metal requires a sophisticated system of mining, transport, refinement, and casting. Yet the entire technological chain has disappeared from the archaeological record. The bronze ceremonial standards deepen the mystery further. They depict suns, circles, ox-drawn vehicles, and abstract forms, each detail crisp and symbolically rich. No written records explain their precise function. Many scholars see them as symbols of authority or ritual objects in royal funerary ceremonies. However, some believe their perfect geometric symmetry may relate to astronomical observation or ritual calendar calculations, suggesting that the people of Alaca Höyük may have possessed not only advanced metallurgical skill, but also a sophisticated understanding of astronomy, something typically associated with larger and later civilizations. Yet all of this remains speculation, as no direct evidence follows. In many tombs, traces of animal sacrifice, particularly cattle, have been found, indicating an organized and structured ritual practice. But the mysterious aspect lies in the fact that the sacrificial arrangements do not match those of any other contemporary civilization. They appear uniquely characteristic of Alaca Höyük, reinforcing the notion that this was a center of a distinct belief system and culture, unlike the Hittites, the Hurrians, or any other known Anatolian community. Additionally, the consistency of meticulously refined metal grave goods suggests that sacrifice and the creation of ritual objects may have been tied to a sacred metallurgical tradition, in which metals served not only as wealth, but as a medium of divine connection. What is even more astonishing is the complete disappearance of this sophisticated metallurgy when the Hittite period began. There is no continuity, no gradual development, no stylistic or technological overlap. It is as if the group capable of producing these extraordinary metal objects vanished from history overnight. This represents a civilizational void too large to explain with simple cultural replacement or ethnic conflict. Some researchers speculate that a natural disaster or epidemic may have wiped out the elite class who possessed this knowledge. Others question whether this might have been a group of highly skilled nomadic metalworkers, a small but exceptional community who arrived, served a ruling class, and later departed, leaving behind works that could never be replicated. Yet under any scenario, the truth remains that the metallurgy of Alaca Höyük stands as a unique phenomenon, incomprehensible through conventional technological progression. Overall, the Alaca Höyük royal tombs do not merely reveal an ancient society with distinctive ritual structures, but also unveil a metallurgical science that had reached astonishing sophistication. The fact that a Bronze Age community could produce such large quantities of gold, silver, and refined copper at this level of craftsmanship forces the entire field of archaeology to reconsider the technological development curve of early humanity. These tombs are like a final message from a vanished civilization. They once existed, once flourished, once mastered advanced techniques beyond what the world believed possible for their era, and then vanished without leaving any explanation. And it is precisely the extraordinary abundance of metal, together with the metallurgy far ahead of its time, that stands as the clearest evidence that this society reached a level we can only speculate about, a technical peak buried by time, reflected only through the radiant artifacts resting deep beneath the soil of Alaca Höyük. Yapahuwa Rock Fortress, standing proudly on a rock mass nearly 90 meters high in the dry plains of northern Sri Lanka, is one of the most remarkable yet mysterious ancient structures on the island. Although it served as the capital for only a brief period in the 13th century, Yapahuwa possessed defensive architecture and sculptural details that far exceeded what one would expect from the technological capabilities of its time. From the very moment one sees the fortress rising almost vertically against the cliff, the first question inevitably emerges. How were ancient builders able to construct a vast system of palaces' walls and monumental stairways so tightly integrated into such a treacherous landscape, and why did they choose this very location? Yet these mysteries are only the beginning. As one ventures deeper into Yapahuwa, from its steep stairways to its unique lion reliefs, from the vanished wooden palace structures to its multiple defensive walls, it becomes evident that this fortress is a convergence point of various artistic and technical traditions. However, among all the peculiarities of Yapahuwa, nothing sparks more debate than the cuts, grooves, and drilled holes in the stone marks that seem to reveal a sophisticated stoneworking ability far beyond the conventional tools of the 13th century and which remain unexplained to this day. What do you think created those perfectly carved cuts and grooves at Yapahuwa? Advanced ancient craftsmanship or a long-lost technology? Share your thoughts in the comments below. To understand why these cuts attract so much attention, one must realize that Yapahuwa was built primarily from solid rock, where natural rock surfaces were incorporated into the walls and foundations. However, contrary to the naturally rugged appearance one might expect, many rock faces at Yapahuwa display perfectly straight grooves, sharp, right-angled cuts, and even circular drilled holes with uniform diameters, all extremely difficult to produce using primitive chiseling techniques. If these were merely traces of tools like chisels, hammers, or stone axes, the grooves would not be so mechanically consistent. Yet in reality, the grooves on the stone at Yapahuwa maintain almost identical depths from start to finish, with lines that never deviate, bend, or gently curve due to the natural variance of human force. Some cuts run several meters long and still maintain absolute straightness, something even many modern stoneworking teams would struggle to achieve without powered machinery. One of the most challenging issues for researchers lies in determining the true purpose of these grooves. The most common hypothesis is that they were used to anchor wooden beams of palace structures or other architectural components that have since disappeared. But their placement does not fully align with conventional wooden framing systems. Some grooves appear in positions unsuitable for supporting columns, while others have such uniform widths that they resemble technical installation slots rather than simple beam sockets, as if ancient builders were working on a material requiring extremely high precision. Another hypothesis suggests that these marks relate to a system of stair anchors or lifting mechanisms used during construction. Yet there is no evidence of pulleys or large support devices to match. Other scholars propose that the grooves were made to channel water or house drainage pipes, but Yapahuwa did not possess the kind of advanced hydraulic infrastructure found in ancient Indian or Khmer cities, and many groove locations do not support such a function at all. What deepens the mystery is the uncanny similarity between Yapahuwa's stone cuts and mechanically precise cutting marks found at ancient sites elsewhere, such as in Peru, Jordan, and Egypt, where similarly straight, machine-like cuts appear on granite or sandstone. Although these civilizations had no direct connection to medieval Sri Lanka, the resemblance raises questions. Is this coincidence or evidence of a shared, now-lost stoneworking technique? Some archaeologists cautiously argue that these marks simply reflect skilled craftsmanship and patience. Yet this explanation is countered by modern specialists in stoneworking technology, Achieving straight, flat, and uniform cuts of this quality would require high-grade metal blades or a mechanism capable of applying consistent force, none of which are recorded in Sri Lankan historical sources. A closer look reveals that many grooves are arranged in parallel at evenly spaced intervals, as if intended to secure stone panels or some movable components. Yet strangely, no trace of such panels remains, nor does any surviving structure match this configuration. This has led some scholars to speculate that Yapahuwa may once have possessed a far more complex architectural system than what survives today. Some even suggest that the destruction of the wooden palace might not have been due to time, but to a deliberate act meant to erase the original structural evidence, though this remains unverified speculation. Among all areas bearing enigmatic marks, the stone walls leading to the main stairway attract the most attention. On sloping natural rock surfaces, long parallel grooves exist so sharp that they appear to have been made by a large metal saw. Some grooves form perfect rectangular channels with edges carved so precisely that they defy belief. They are not only geometrically elegant, but exhibit near-perfect symmetry. There is almost no margin of error, an achievement that even modern stonemasons working with hard stone would rarely reach using hand tools alone. The mystery does not stop there. Some circular holes at Yapahuwa have nearly perfect diameters with smooth, refined walls and uniform depths. Some holes extend so deeply into the rock that only a metallic twist drill could realistically create them. Yet in the 13th century, such drilling technology was not known in Sri Lanka. Why then were these holes drilled? To insert wooden pegs, to secure stone beams, or to serve a function within a mechanism that has now vanished? No explanation has been definitively confirmed. Notably, this cutting technique does not appear randomly throughout the fortress, but is concentrated in architecturally critical zones such as wall bases, palace foundations, and transitional areas between natural rock and built structures. This pattern indicates that the cuts were intentional, not accidental, and certainly not the result of natural erosion. The ancient builders created them with purpose, using a method that today remains unknown, or perhaps represents a lost technique. Emphasizing this mystery reveals that Yapahuwa was far more than just a military fortress. Its steep stairways lie in reliefs, blending Khmer Indian and Sri Lankan styles, its multiple layers of defensive walls, and its bold placement atop a massive rock all speak to an architectural vision of extraordinary sophistication. Yet it is the straight-cut square channels and inexplicably precise drilled holes that make Yapahuwa one of the most debated archaeological sites in Sri Lanka. They raise questions. Did the people of that era possess techniques more advanced than we assume? Did craftsmen from other civilizations, such as the Khmer, renowned for their stone mastery, contribute to its construction? Or did Yapahuwa once feature a highly elaborate structural system with complex stone and wood mechanisms now reduced to only these subtle traces? Today, visitors ascending the steep stairways of Yapahuwa are often overwhelmed by the fortress's grandeur. Yet it is the small, unassuming cuts in the stone that have puzzled archaeologists for decades. These marks are silent witnesses to a long-lost technique, a vanished architectural system, or a body of knowledge carried away by time. And for this reason, the Yapahuwa Rock Fortress remains one of Sri Lanka's great enigmas, a place where every stone seems to pose a question, and every cut hints that our history may hold deeper layers, still waiting to be uncovered. The Caracol Causeway Network. A magnificent system of elevated roads stretching through the dense jungles of Belize has long puzzled archaeologists because of its level of planning, engineering, and durability qualities far beyond what was once imagined possible for the ancient Maya civilization. What makes Caracol unique is not only its scale, a vast urban center with residential zones, ceremonial plazas, temples, reservoirs, and terraced agricultural systems, but also the way the Maya wove all of these components together using Sakbiob elevated straight causeways so durable that they remain nearly intact after more than a millennium. Through the lens of modern surveys, Caracol is not merely a city, it is a deliberately connected infrastructural system, an ancient highway network surpassing the scale of most other Maya centers. This raises questions among researchers. Why would a civilization without wheels, without draft animals, and without metal tools build such an enormous transportation system? What drove them to invest manpower, materials, and intellect into roads comparable in width to modern highways when they themselves traveled on foot? And more importantly, what techniques did they use to create roadbeds as durable as concrete, so astonishing that even material scientists express surprise when examining them firsthand? How do you think the Maya were able to compress layers of limestone and soil into a roadbed as hard as concrete without wheels, metal tools, or machinery? Do you have a theory to share in the comments below? In Caracol, these causeways were not merely compacted earth. They were sophisticated engineering structures. Each sakbi was constructed from multiple layers of finely crushed limestone, mixed with soil and organic materials laid down in thick strata and compacted using a method still not fully understood. Some segments exhibit hardness equivalent to natural stone and even display microstructural bonding similar to modern concrete. This compacted foundation is so dense that it is nearly impermeable to water, allowing the roads to survive centuries of humidity and rainfall while maintaining remarkable flatness. The mystery lies in this fact: the ancient Maya had no mechanical compaction tools, no tamping machines, no wheeled vehicles to distribute weight. How then did they achieve such uniformity along routes stretching many kilometers? LiDAR surveys reveal that Caracol's causeways have an almost perfect cross-section, consistently 6 to 16 meters wide, raised above the forest floor and running straight, even across steep, rugged terrain, filled with ravines and depressions. Beyond being flat, they were engineered with calculated gradients for drainage without causing erosion. This suggests that Maya engineers were not only skilled in material compaction and preparation, but also possessed impressive knowledge of hydraulics and structural design, surpassing earlier assumptions about their technological capabilities. The greatest question is not only how they built them, but why. A massive network of elevated roads connecting central districts, peripheral zones, temples, and even other Maya centers suggests that Caracol once functioned as a super-urban complex with a highly organized societal structure. The astonishing straightness of these routes defying natural terrain has led some to suspect that the Maya used astronomical methods for alignment. Detailed studies of the Sakbiob show that some align with the rising or setting of stars important in Maya cosmology, with monsoon wind directions, or with the sun's position during ceremonial times. This strengthens the idea that the causeways may have served not only as transportation routes, but also as ritual pathways, symbols of authority or links between sacred hubs. Some Sakbiob terminate at major ceremonial plazas, where processions, rites, or communal festivals could have taken place. If this interpretation is correct, then Caracol did not build roads merely for movement. They imprinted cosmic order onto the landscape, turning geography into a sacred diagram. But another compelling hypothesis suggests that the Sakbiob formed the backbone of Caracol's military power. Caracol was a formidable Maya kingdom, victorious in major conflicts, including its famous defeat of Tikal, one of the most powerful cities of the era. The straight elevated causeways enabled rapid troop movement and efficient transport of strategic resources such as obsidian and jade. If these were military arteries, they indicate logistical capabilities far beyond those of other Maya states. Yet even this theory cannot fully explain the extraordinary durability of the roadbeds. Military transport alone would not require foundations compacted to concrete-like hardness. This leads to the idea that the durable foundations were not merely for bearing traffic, but were engineered to withstand time-rain flooding and root intrusion, allowing the roads to endure for generations without maintenance. If true, the Sakbiob represent a centuries-long infrastructural vision, a monumental declaration of power by Caracol's ruling dynasty. What makes Caracol even more enigmatic is that the Sakbiob extend far beyond the urban core into distant residential zones, forming a network more akin to the transportation system of a nation than that of a single city. LiDAR reveals hundreds of structures connected by these routes, including platforms, reservoirs, terraced fields, temples, and ceremonial precincts. This transforms Caracol into a unique decentralized urban model. Instead of concentrating everything in a single core, Caracol dispersed into multiple nodes linked by causeways. Some scholars refer to this as a jungle supercity, a form of urbanization the modern world has only recently begun to understand. Yet at the center of all inquiries lies the mystery of the construction material. Survey reports describe properties that are mechanically unusual, extremely high compaction, evenly distributed stone particles, micro-layers distinctly stratified, yet without voids or fissures, and an almost complete resistance to root penetration. Some researchers propose that the Maya may have used a form of burnt lime or natural binder to reinforce the roadbeds, though no direct evidence has been confirmed. What has been found are material layers altered in ways difficult to explain naturally. While it cannot be stated that they invented concrete, the durability similarities force serious consideration of the possibility. Could the Maya have possessed a form of material science, yet undocumented, or did the prolonged compaction, created by thousands of workers over months, generate an effect comparable to concrete formation? Modern science still has no definitive answer. The Caracol Causeway Network thus stands as one of Central America's greatest archaeological enigmas, a system of causeways whose scale surpassed practical needs, whose durability exceeded known Maya technology, whose geometry defied natural topography, and whose persistence challenges modern engineering expectations. It compels us to reconsider our understanding of the ancient Maya, their engineering skills, their societal organization, their infrastructural intentions, and the way they intertwined people, ritual, and astronomy into a symbolically rich architectural network. Caracol is not merely an archaeological site. It is a reminder that ancient civilizations may have possessed knowledge we are only beginning to rediscover. And this causeway system, with its stone foundations compressed to concrete-like hardness, may be among the clearest evidence that the Maya once built and conceptualized far beyond the limits we have assumed for them. When archaeologists excavated the Huaca Cao complex of the Moche civilization in the Chicama Valley, they discovered one of the most astonishing mummies in the history of South America, a woman of the elite class preserved in near-perfect condition and bearing on her body a multitude of tattoos that remained sharp after 1,500 years. This was not merely an archaeological discovery, but a doorway through time that opened an entirely new perspective on the worldview, rituals, and technical knowledge of the Moche. The tattoos on her skin had not faded, had not significantly deformed, and still displayed every line and every symbol in full detail. This astonished scientists because rarely do ancient tattoos anywhere in the world retain such clarity after such a long period. They believe that this not only reflects an extremely advanced tattooing technique, but also shows that the Moche used highly durable pigments capable of resisting biological and chemical deterioration over long spans of time. The tattoo pigment may have been made from burnt carbon combined with natural minerals or herbs with antibacterial and antioxidant effects, but current tests have yet to determine the complete formula. The skin of the mummy was preserved, mainly thanks to the coastal desert climate of Peru, yet even with such favorable environmental conditions, very few other mummies retain tattoos as clear as these. This led researchers to hypothesize that the woman may have undergone a special body treatment ritual before burial, possibly using plant resins or ritual herbs to protect the body from decomposition. At the same time, the choice of pigment materials and the tattooing technique may also have been connected to her social status, those who held the highest religious or political power in Moche society. Upon close observation, the tattoos include snakes, stingrays, spiders, geometric symbols, and spiritually significant creatures, all depicted with extremely precise line work. Many motifs convey movement, such as serpents winding along the wrist, or spiders whose legs radiate outward in perfect symmetry. This level of detail is perplexing, because the tattooing tools of the period should have been very rudimentary. The greatest mystery lies in the fact that few tattooing tools have been found in Moche habitation sites or cemeteries, leading to the hypothesis that tattooing techniques were kept secret by a group of ritual tattooists, perhaps priests or individuals with esoteric roles in society. If so, tattoos were not merely body adornments, but part of a complex religious system in which each symbol carried power or a message directed toward the gods. The perfect preservation of the tattoos after 1,500 years further enhances their symbolic value, as if they were created not merely to exist during the woman's lifetime, but to speak to future generations, preserving her role within Moche power structures. What do you think allowed these tattoos to remain so sharp for more than 1,500 years? An advanced technique beyond its time, or a secret ritual we still haven't decoded? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Although Moche tattoos appear in many ceramic artworks and decorative motifs, there is little evidence that ordinary people bore similar tattoos. This has led archaeologists to conclude that only individuals of exceptional status or religious function were permitted to carry this form of body art. For the Moche, each animal held strong spiritual meaning. Snakes were linked to water rebirth and the strength of the earth. Spiders symbolized creativity and supernatural ability. Stingrays were associated with the underworld, the realm where spirits reside. When combined, these figures could form a ritual map on the body of the female leader, helping her connect with various worlds in Moche mythology. Many researchers believe that certain tattoos served as symbols of authority, marking her role as a high priestess who conducted sacrificial or healing rituals. The healing aspect relates to the spider, because in Moche art, spiders are often depicted as weavers of fate or bearers of magic. This simultaneously reflects the belief that her tattooed hands could have been used to perform major rituals in which the tattoos were not merely symbols but were believed to contain actual supernatural power. The discovery of the Huaca Cao Viejo mummy has shaken the earlier assumption that Moche society was entirely male-dominated. The fact that a woman was buried in a ceremonial pyramid with many symbols of authority, staffs, weapons, gold, and copper ornaments suggests that she may have been the head of a cult or a true ruler. What astonished archaeologists even more was that the tattoos did not appear as decorative elements but as hierarchical markers resembling emblems or insignia. They not only helped her express power in life, but may also have played a role in rituals meant to communicate with the gods, particularly in ceremonies involving water fertility warfare or sacrifice, all central themes of Moche culture. When analyzing the tattooing technique, experts observed that the pigment had been inserted into the dermis with remarkable depth and uniformity. This required tools far more refined than simple stone needles. or thorns. It is highly likely that the Moche created tattooing implements from metal or finely sharpened bone, something difficult to imagine without direct evidence. Furthermore, the level of pressure control and precision in line work indicates that the tattooist was a highly skilled artisan. Yet no direct evidence of a tattoo workshop or training grounds has been discovered. Everything appears to have been kept secret, making tattooing in Moche society a form of esoteric knowledge reserved only for the priestly elite. The mummy was preserved in extremely low humidity and mineral-rich desert soil, but experts assert that environmental factors alone could not have maintained the tattoos in such perfect condition. Some evidence suggests that the body was treated with antibacterial herbs, possibly extracts from the huarango tree or other native plants with potent antiseptic properties. In addition, the funerary process may have included drying or dehydrating the body to preserve the skin's structure. This raises the question, was this preservation technique used for all Moche elites, or was it reserved only for individuals regarded as sacred? From an archaeological perspective, tattoos served as a visible interface between the living and the divine. When examining the reliefs at Huaca Cao, depictions of warriors, priests, and Moche deities often carry symbols similar to the woman's tattoos. This has led to the hypothesis that she may have performed blood rituals or healing ceremonies, two pillars of Moche religion. In such rituals, the hands played a central role, and tattooed symbols of spiders or snakes upon them may have been seen as conduits of power. Thus, tattoos functioned simultaneously as religious tools and political instruments, reinforcing her authority within the community. One of the most perplexing aspects is why no other Moche mummies with similar tattoos have been found. If this were a widespread ritual tradition, we would expect to uncover more examples. Yet the level of sophistication and durability seen in this case does not appear on any other mummy. This has led researchers to believe that the case is entirely unique and may reflect the woman's exceptional role within Moche power structures. She may have been the sole high priestess of her era, or an individual whom the community both worshipped and feared. The Carchemish basalt reliefs are regarded as one of the most astonishing and daring manifestations of Neo-Hittite artistic capability, not only because they have endured for millennia, but also because of the complexity of their craftsmanship, far beyond what is typically expected of ancient stoneworking techniques. Most striking in this monumental ensemble is the ancient artisan's choice of basalt, a volcanic rock of exceptional hardness, highly resistant to abrasion and extremely difficult to work with, using primitive tools to create large-scale reliefs that nonetheless possess unbelievably fine and precise details. Basalt is not a material typically favored for refined artistic work, as its fine-grained but very hard structure makes it significantly more challenging to carve than sandstone, limestone, or tuff, which were commonly used by other ancient civilizations. Yet Carchemish transformed basalt into a medium for storytelling, mythological recording, and the depiction of royal authority, leaving archaeologists puzzled over the true technical level of its artisans. What do you think the people of Carchemish used to carve such extremely hard basalt with such incredible precision? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Historically, Carchemish was a strategic city along the Euphrates River, serving as a crossroads between Anatolia, the Levant, and Mesopotamia. This position gave it a culturally blended character, yet its approach to basalt was entirely distinct. There is no firm evidence that basalt quarries existed adjacent to the city, suggesting that massive basalt blocks were transported from distant sources. This raises major logistical questions. How did ancient workers move multi-ton stones across uneven terrain, and how did they prepare the basalt surface to ensure it was sufficiently flat and stable before carving began? Archaeology reveals only stone tools and soft metal implements like copper or bronze materials, inadequate for effective basalt carving. Yet the carved lines on the reliefs are sharp, evenly deep, and exhibit tiered relief techniques capable of simulating layered depth, something that would require controlled force and tools capable of cutting extremely precisely into hard rock. The refinement of the Carchemish reliefs lies not only in technical mastery, but also in stylistic sophistication. Artisans employed parallel incisions and shallow but razor-sharp grooves to convey motion hair garments. Musculature tendons and posture are rendered with fluidity. When carving mythic beasts, they distinguished individual layers of fur, ornamental patterns, and intricate details of wings and claws. In ancient stone art, basalt was often reserved for geometric or simple shapes due to its difficulty, yet Carchemish produced expressive figures with clear facial features. Deep-set eyes, defined noses, naturally closed lips. This has prompted scholars to debate whether the artisans possessed specialized metalworking technologies or whether they used a method to heat and soften the basalt surface, something for which archaeology has found no definitive evidence. All theories remain speculative, as no workshop or production site has yet been discovered. The marvel extends beyond artistic detail. The overall scale of the Carchemish relief system confounds modern researchers. Reliefs were mounted along fortification walls, ceremonial gates, processional pathways, and multi-meter segments of monumental structures. Together they form a storyline running along the walls, akin to a vast pictorial chronicle, illustrating history, myth, warfare, and royal ritual. Yet because there are no accompanying inscriptions, most interpretations rely solely on symbolic and stylistic clues. The lack of textual annotation is itself a profound mystery. Why would a literate civilization choose to narrate exclusively through imagery? Was this a ritual code intended only for the elite, or simply a distinctive aesthetic tradition that regarded imagery as the ultimate expression of authority? Several reliefs feature hybrid deities, human-bodied bird-headed figures, sphinx forms, and other composite beings shown in solemn ritual postures, often bearing symbolic objects. These figures exhibit Mesopotamian influence, yet they are not identical to Assyrian or Babylonian models, indicating local reinterpretation. This makes Carchemish a zone of symbolic fusion, a place where mythologies were restructured into new forms. The fact that these complex figures were carved into basalt deepens the enigma. Why choose such a difficult material? Perhaps the durability of basalt was believed to provide eternal preservation for divine power. Carchemish came under strong Assyrian influence during several periods, and some reliefs display Assyrian stylistic traits, muscular figures, disciplined composition, yet still retain local character. This mixture suggests multiple artisan groups working simultaneously. However, scholars have yet to find evidence of a royal workshop, though such a facility must have existed to maintain stylistic consistency. The absence of workshop remains intensifies. The mystery were artisans working outside the city in yet unexcavated zones, or was the production process decentralized and overseen so strictly that no trace was left behind? Another layer of mystery lies in the astronomical symbols scattered throughout the reliefs: 8-pointed stars, multi-rayed solar discs, and cyclic decorative bands. Some scholars propose that these belong to a ritual calendar or encoded cosmological system used to time agricultural and ceremonial events. Yet without textual evidence, such interpretations remain speculative. Their deliberate inclusion in a basalt-based monumental program suggests that the Carchemish elites intended to preserve something timeless, messages meant to transcend generations. Many reliefs show signs of deliberate destruction. Faces chiseled away, divine symbols erased, significant portions removed. These changes likely correspond to shifts in rulership or religious ideology, attempts to erase predecessors' authority. But not all cases are so easily explained. Some reliefs were flipped and reinstalled as building blocks in later constructions, implying that later inhabitants viewed them as both valuable materials and symbols whose original meaning needed to be neutralized. Such reuse has scrambled their original arrangement, complicating modern efforts to reconstruct the intended narrative. Researchers remain most perplexed by the fundamental question: how did the artisans of Carchemish achieve such precision in basalt? Some theories suggest they possessed higher quality metal tools than what archaeological evidence currently indicates. Others propose an abrasive technique using quartz sandwater and repeated motion to produce deep, sharp lines. Another hypothesis argues that they may have heated the basalt to reduce surface hardness before carving. Yet no hypothesis has been conclusively proven. The only certainty is that their techniques surpassed many contemporaneous civilizations. Viewed as a whole, the Carchemish basalt reliefs are not merely artistic creations, but a symbolic system, preserving the spiritual and political essence of an entire civilization. From their extraordinarily difficult material, to their enigmatic carving techniques, to their mythic and ideological content, everything suggests that the people of Carchemish sought to construct a wall that speaks a visual narrative meant to endure as long as basalt itself. We can perceive their motions, rituals, power structures, and cosmological visions. Yet one deeper secret remains: the methods of craftsmanship they carried with them into the silent depths of history. Samaipata rock platform is one of the most mysterious constructions in South America, a place where just a single glance is enough to make one question what kind of capabilities ancient people might have possessed to transform an entire mountain into such a massive, monolithic architectural surface. The entire sandstone summit at Samaipata was shaved, flattened, sculpted, and even engraved on an unimaginable scale, forming an architectural platform stretching more than 200 meters long, and the most astonishing part is that it was carved directly from solid bedrock. At a time when there was no advanced metallurgy and no mechanical tools, carving a few square meters of stone was already a challenge, let alone transforming an entire mountaintop into a vast, leveled surface packed with hundreds of sharp, precise details. This monolithic rock is not the result of natural erosion or random cracking. It bears the marks of deliberate, repeated, precise manipulation, as if there had been a comprehensive architectural plan from the very beginning. In your opinion, how could ancient people carve an entire mountain into such a massive monolithic architectural platform? What technique could they have used? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Long, perfectly straight cuts, shallow but evenly spaced. Step strange geometric cavities. Circular grooves, rectangular grooves, straight grooves. All of these were created by working directly on the original stone surface in a way no one has fully explained. Its monolithic nature creates a paradox. The larger the construction, the greater the mystery, because it becomes increasingly difficult to believe that an ancient community could manipulate the geological structure of an entire mountain without leaving layered marks, without jointed blocks, and without significant inconsistencies between sections. Observers note that some areas are polished to an uncanny smoothness, as if a powerful grinding tool had been used to wipe the stone. Elsewhere, parallel grooves appear as though sliced by a gigantic blade. Some archaeologists suggest ancient craftsmen used stone hammers and harder stone fragments to carve the platform, but this explanation struggles against several questions. How many lifetimes would it take to flatten thousands of square meters of bedrock by hand? What ancient technique could produce deep, straight grooves stretching tens of meters with such precision? Why didn't the stone crack? under repeated heavy impact. And perhaps most importantly, what was the purpose of this enormous carved surface? The mystery surrounding this monolithic architectural platform deepens further when we consider that civilizations known to have occupied Samaipata, including the Inca, may have used the site, but the artistic style and stoneworking technique visible on the platform vastly exceed Inca aesthetics capabilities and known methods. This leads many scholars to ask whether the platform belonged to an earlier civilization or a ritual-oriented community with highly specialized knowledge. The dense network of grooves and lines across the rock surface only adds to the confusion regarding the platform's original function. Some wide, deep grooves resemble water channels, yet the topography does not support a practical water management purpose. Some lines align with sunrise and sunset axes along the horizon, prompting theories that the platform may have served as an astronomical center or a stone calendar for sacred rituals. Still, the scale of the construction surpasses typical astronomical needs, as if designed for a ceremonial purpose we have never encountered. The presence of geometric cavities, circular, square, rectangular, has inspired many hypotheses. Perhaps they were altars, ritual stations, stands for statues, or bases for sacred objects. Some cavities show extremely fine polishing marks, raising the question, what tools were used to achieve such smoothness on sandstone, and why was such smoothness required? Looking beyond the platform itself, one finds a completely different architectural layer. At the foot of the hill walls, room ceremonial courtyards, and defensive structures, all unmistakably Inca in design. This creates an intriguing contrast. The lower level consists of stacked stones assembled manually, while the upper level is an enormous monolithic platform, carved centuries, perhaps millennia earlier. The Inca appear to have merely utilized the surrounding area without altering the monolithic platform itself. Why didn't they continue carving it? Did they lack the knowledge or the ability? Another paradox intensifies the enigma of Samaipata. Despite the platform's immense scale, large enough to host hundreds of participants, there is no evidence of long-term habitation. No major city remains, no dense residential areas, no marketplaces, no large cemeteries. This suggests to many researchers that the site was not a place to live, but rather a specialized ritual station for a select elite priests, warriors, leaders who gathered only at significant moments. The absence of permanent populations supports theories that the platform may have served religious, astronomical, or even spiritual functions for which no written records survive. The platform's location further amplifies its mystery. Positioned on a mountainside with sweeping panoramic views, it resembles a natural observatory. Some believe the area's unique geological energy made it a ceremonial center. A few research groups have even detected slight magnetic anomalies in certain parts of the platform, though no definitive scientific conclusion has been reached. All of this paints a picture of an ancient community using the entire mountain as a tool to connect with the cosmos or the divine. When all the evidence is considered together, what makes Samaipata rock platform extraordinary is not only its unknown purpose, but how it was created. Even with modern technology, reproducing such a vast, precise, and durable monolithic structure would be no trivial task. The accuracy of the grooves, the smoothness of the surfaces, the endurance against time, and the uninterrupted solidity of the entire carved surface force scholars to question whether we have underestimated the capabilities of ancient civilizations. Perhaps they possessed techniques lost to history, perhaps generations devoted themselves to carving the mountain, or perhaps they used tools for which we have yet to find any trace. Until new discoveries emerge, the colossal monolithic platform of Samaipata stands as a challenge, a stone letter from the past that we have not yet deciphered, and a reminder that human history is broader, deeper, and more mysterious than we currently understand. Pukara de Tor Cliff Fortress is one of the most impressive ancient cliff fortresses along the edge of the Atacama Desert, where wind, sun, and unforgiving terrain together create an environment seemingly impossible for a large-scale defensive structure to exist. Yet the ancient Atacameno people built here a complex system of fortifications so sophisticated that even today archaeologists, architects, and engineers remain astonished by their boldness. The entire stronghold clings to the mountainside, rising in multiple tiers that blend natural landforms with remarkable material craftsmanship. What surprises researchers most is the dry stone walling technique, in which stones are fitted so tightly without mortar that the structure has survived for centuries in a place where even the smallest error could have caused collapse. The fortress walls resemble lines etched into the mountainside, assembled from countless stones of different sizes, locked together so precisely that gaps are nearly non-existent. From afar, the walls merge into the desert hillside. Up close, one can see the meticulous selection, shaping, rotation, and placement of each stone to self-lock and distribute pressure evenly throughout the structure. There is no trace of mortar, no artificial binding agent, only weight, shape, and the impeccable calculations of ancient builders. Many wall segments lie on steep slopes where transporting material is a challenge even today. Yet the ancestors of Atacama not only moved the stones, but arranged them into formations as solid as modern defensive works, resisting powerful winds, landslides, and geological shifts for hundreds of years. This raises a profound question. How much did they understand about geology and gravity? Did they possess experimental methods, measurement techniques, or inherited knowledge that remains undiscovered today? While major civilizations such as the Inca or Tiwanaku are known for refined stone masonry, Pukara de Tor displays a very different stylistic identity. The stones were not polished smooth, but left partially natural, enhancing their ability to grip one another. Even so, the level of tightness between layers is astonishing. Some researchers propose that the builders used a technique based on splitting the stones along natural grain lines so they would interlock with bedrock behind them, forming an exterior wall that acted almost like a protective shell. This also helped the walls absorb impact from ancient weapons or mild seismic activity, common in the Andes. Some theories suggest the Atacama people experimented with many arrangements before achieving the optimal configuration, yet archaeological evidence does not show a clear trial-and-error process. Instead, even the oldest wall sections exhibit extraordinary mastery, implying that the builders inherited a highly developed architectural tradition predating the fortress itself. The origin of this knowledge remains mysterious. Was it self-developed or influenced by unknown groups who once passed through the harsh desert region? The dry stone technique raises another question. How do these walls resist sand abrasion or gradual displacement? The Atacama Desert is one of the driest places on Earth, yet strong winds are capable of eroding rock surfaces over decades. Even so, the walls of Pukara de Tor remain stable. Geologists believe the builders selected dense, durable stones that resist weathering, though exactly how they transported and sorted these stones remains unclear. Some theories suggest the stones were quarried directly on the slope, using gravity to move them downward before guiding and locking them into place. This method would have been extremely risky, requiring precise coordination, but it fits well with what is known about Atacameno society. The ingenuity of the walls becomes even clearer when seen in the context of the steep cliffs they occupy. Many fortified positions sit on inclines difficult to reach, yet the stonework there is highly stable. Some walls were reinforced by anchoring them to natural bedrock, forming a seamless bond between human construction and the mountain itself. The fortress becomes not merely a structure on rock, but a structure with the rock and architectural philosophy showing adaptation rather than resistance to nature. Geotechnical analysis reveals that the arrangement of stones disperses load effects rather than concentrating stress in a single point. This demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of gravity and structural stability on par with major ancient civilizations. The stone walls not only served as defenses, but also defined internal functional zones such as living areas, lookout points, storage spaces, and narrow passages designed to control movement during conflict. These internal partitions were built using the same dry stone method, simple, rugged, yet extremely durable. Their arrangement in tight spaces shows an advanced understanding of spatial optimization and safety. Some lower walls may have served ritual functions or supported perishable structures that no longer survive. Whatever their purpose, the consistency of stone-fitting techniques is undeniable. Encircling the fortress are long defensive walls that follow the mountain's natural contours. Their height varies depending on terrain irregularities. Remarkably, these walls run smoothly along slopes without abrupt breaks, proving that the builders surveyed the land with great precision. They did not merely stack stones, they aligned the entire architectural plan with natural wind patterns and the shape of the ridge. This gave the fortress an unexpected harmony with nature rare in ancient military architecture. The perfection of the dry stone method has sparked debates. Did the Atacameno people possess higher engineering capabilities than previously assumed? Did they use specialized tools, measurement systems, or stone selection techniques that modern researchers have yet to reconstruct? Some scholars argue that a non-written system of technical knowledge, rules, practices, and hands-on experience was transmitted across generations of builders. Coupled with the fortress's history of violent conflicts, particularly against Spanish forces in the 16th century, the durability of these walls becomes even more extraordinary. They survived not only time, but the assaults of human warfare. Thus, the dry stone walls of Pukara de Tor are more than a construction technique. They are a symbol of ancient knowledge reflecting the precision and insight of a community thriving in one of the harshest environments on Earth. From stone selection, fitting methods, load optimization, and terrain integration to anticipating natural erosion, all these elements form a mystery not yet fully explained. Pukara de Tor Cliff Fortress is not merely a fortress, it is a testament to the capabilities of past civilizations, a chapter of stone architecture still unread in its entirety. Until its secrets are fully uncovered, these tightly fitted walls will continue standing silently in the desert, challenging modern assumptions about ancient engineering and craftsmanship. Do you think the dry stone construction technique of Pukara de Tor suggests that ancient builders possessed knowledge far more advanced than we once believed? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Roccia dell'Elefante in Castelsardo is one of the most enigmatic, natural man-made hybrid structures on the island of Sardinia, a basalt rock shaped so vividly like an elephant that it seems almost unreal. Yet what makes it truly extraordinary is not its outer form, but the secrets buried within it for more than 4 millennia. Anyone seeing it might assume it was shaped purely by wind, water, and time. However, hidden inside the rock is a multi-level burial system that raises profound questions about the technological capabilities of prehistoric people. Did they know far more than history acknowledges? The Domus de Janus, or Houses of the Fairy Women, carved deep into this seemingly inert block of stone, possess an unusual multi-tiered layout. Upper chambers, lower chambers, side niches, corpse platforms, ceremonial grooves, and connecting passages arranged like a miniature architectural complex with a precision far beyond what primitive stone tools should have allowed. Archaeologists have attempted to reconstruct how the Preneragic people hollowed out a massive block of basalt weighing several tons, yet none of the proposed reconstructions are convincing. The interior surfaces are too flat, the corners too sharp, the vertical alignment between the two levels too exact. How could a society with no hard metals, no wheels, no machinery produce a multi-level tomb system that even modern craftsmen struggle to replicate? This lies at the heart of the mystery technology beyond its time. Light-based surveys revealed that the two levels were not carved randomly, but followed repeating proportional patterns, suggesting that ancient builders may have possessed some form of measurement, perhaps based on footsteps, shadows, or acoustic resonance. However, there is no archaeological evidence showing they had precise measuring tools. What confounds researchers even more are the tool marks. The interior surfaces bear no traces of stone axes or metal chisels. They are smooth in a strangely uniform way, as if polished with a tool that has vanished from history or one never before recorded. The flatness of many surfaces raises the possibility that prehistoric people knew how to use vibration or heat to weaken stone before carving. If so, Roccia dell'Elefante would be strong evidence that ancient knowledge was far more advanced than we assume. But the sophistication of the multi-level tomb lies not only in its craftsmanship, but also in its symbolic structure. Many researchers believe the two levels represent two worlds, the upper level symbolizing the realm of the living and the lower level symbolizing the realm of the dead, with the connecting passage representing the soul's transition. This aligns with the rebirth philosophy of several megalithic cultures across the Mediterranean. If Roccia dell'Elefante was constructed with this worldview, then it is more than a burial space. It is a miniature cosmic model portraying the journey after death. The spiral carvings, circular depressions, and ritual channels further reinforce this symbolism. Spirals may reference solar cycles or the flow of life. Circular holes may indicate sacred marker points or anchors for offerings. The grooves may have held liquids during transition rituals. All these elements show that the multi-level structure is not only the product of high craftsmanship, but also of deep spiritual thought, a profound reflection on death, far more complex than what we currently know of prehistoric Sardinian communities. Even more remarkable is the structural consistency. Although the upper and lower levels were carved from different directions, their alignment and proportions match almost perfectly. To achieve this, ancient craftsmen needed exceptional three-dimensional spatial awareness and some form of marking system to maintain the central axis during carving. Some archaeologists propose that light shaft holes were used for orientation. Others suggest tensioned ropes or wooden posts, yet no physical evidence confirms any of these theories. The precision appears too modern, too technical for the era. Thus, Roccia dell'Elefante stands as a reminder that we may be underestimating prehistoric capabilities. Another mystery concerns the choice of the rock itself. Why choose the one shaped like an elephant? Did it already resemble an elephant when carving began, or did the shape emerge only after millennia of erosion unknown to the ancient builders? Some scholars believe they may have perceived a rough outline and chosen it deliberately, seeing the guardian creature as symbolic. Others suggest the possibility that the ancient builders enhanced the shape. There is no direct evidence, but the idea points to an ability to blend symbolism, nature, and ritual into a single structure. Local legends about the Janus' tiny magical beings also add layers to the mystery. People believe the Janus once lived inside the chambers and protected their ancestors. Though mythological, the tale reflects the belief that the elephant-shaped rock marks the boundary between the world of humans and the world of spirits. Roccia dell'Elefante's isolated position on a hillside raises further questions. Why would such a complex burial system stand alone far from settlements or major archaeological sites? Many theories propose that it functioned as a ritual point, a sacred boundary marker, or an astronomical reference location, as its position aligns with solar movements during equinoxes and solstices. If so, it was not merely a tomb, but a ritual station, marking cosmic cycles. The importance of the multi-level design is reinforced by recent acoustic studies. Sounds produced in the lower chamber resonate differently from those in the upper one, suggesting intentional design for ritual effects. This pushes Roccia dell'Elefante beyond the idea of a simple tomb and closer to that of a prehistoric stone sanctuary. Every detail from spatial arrangement to grooves, flat planes, and floor inclinations may carry ritual meanings that remain undeciphered today. To this day, Roccia dell'Elefante stands as a challenge to modern history and science. No one can fully explain the techniques used by the Prenurigic people. No one knows why they chose this rock. No one fully understands the philosophy behind the multi-level system. Roccia dell'Elefante serves as a reminder that ancient humans were far from simple. They may have possessed knowledge and techniques far beyond what historical records currently acknowledge. Until the secrets of the multi-level tombs are unlocked, Roccia dell'Elefante will remain one of the most perplexing, astonishing, and compelling ancient structures ever discovered. If the multi-level tomb system inside Roccia dell'Elefante is truly so sophisticated that it surpasses what prehistoric tools should have been capable of, where do you think that knowledge came from? Was it the result of generations of accumulated experience, a group of highly specialized craftsmen, or a form of understanding we still haven't uncovered today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Wadi Hamamat quarry reliefs, one of the most enigmatic sites of ancient Egypt, lies in the heart of a harsh desert, yet contains countless traces indicating that this place once held significant importance in religious rituals, mineral extraction, and perilous trans-desert expeditions. When scholars examine the reliefs and inscriptions scattered across the rock faces along this ancient route, they gradually realize that Wadi Hamamat was not merely a quarry, it was like a sandstone chronicle, preserving the memories of dozens of generations of miners, engineers, priests, and expedition crews over more than 2 millennia. What is strange is that many inscriptions overlap one another, as if each dynasty felt compelled to leave its mark before venturing deeper into this desolate land. These carvings, though faded by time, evoke a ritualistic atmosphere, an act of asking nature for permission to enter a space believed to be watched over by divine forces. The reliefs depicting boats, caravans, the god, Min prayers of protection, and numerous mysterious scenes suggest that this site once served as a unique intersection between human life and the supernatural world envisioned by ancient Egyptians. Alongside the religious and ritual layer, Wadi Hamamat contains a vast amount of administrative inscriptions describing mining missions, labor counts, offerings, transportation routes, and unusual details such as the hierarchical structures of mining teams, strange ceremonies performed before approaching a rock vein, sandstorms that claimed expedition lives, and even divine dreams recorded with far more detail than inscriptions elsewhere. This blend of factual events, myths, rituals, and dream narratives makes it nearly impossible for modern researchers to determine the true boundary between history and religious belief at this site. Among all mysteries of Wadi Hamamat, the most debated are the superstandard quarrying marks far beyond simple manual techniques previously assumed for ancient Egyptian technology. The stone quarried here, grey wacke, is so hard that even modern heavy machinery is needed to cut it efficiently. Yet the surviving marks on the quarry walls and floors indicate an inexplicable method of working flat-cutting surfaces, perfectly straight grooves, gigantic slabs weighing tens of tons that were separated along unexpectedly smooth planes, and no clear traces of crude tools like stone hammers or copper chisels. Some unfinished blocks show separation boundaries so sharp that many specialists compare them to cuts made by industrial metal blades, something impossible for Old Middle or New Kingdom technology. This implies that the miners possessed a lost technique, perhaps chemical expansion, to split rock, a complex system of levers and wedges capable of creating massive focus pressure, or some yet undiscovered technological method. Although no advanced metal tools have been found, the consistency, smoothness, and precision of the cuts strongly suggest a standardized process rather than chance or crude workmanship. The mystery deepens when considering Wadi Hamamat's terrain, narrow passages, sections barely wide enough for a few people, walking single-file steep slopes and sharp turns. How could enormous slabs, some weighing more than 40 tons, have been transported out of the valley current? Theories each face contradictions. Large labor forces would have no space to operate. Sledges would break the stone on rough ground. Seasonal floods lacked the power to move such masses. Some researchers propose that the Egyptians built temporary wooden sledways lubricated with oil or fat, yet no physical trace remains. Another bold theory suggests they used a combination of water heat and wedges to release the stone blocks in controlled stages before pushing them through artificially widened mountain corridors. But all these theories remain speculative as evidence is insufficient. Many inscriptions describe huge labor forces, thousands of workers accompanied by priests, engineers, and military escorts, yet even large numbers cannot account for the precision of the quarry cuts. Sheer manpower cannot produce perfectly flat surfaces, only advanced technique can. This raises the possibility that Wadi Hamamat's quarrying methods were inherited from a much older tradition, perhaps predating the pyramid era, or from specialized mining guilds possessing guarded secrets. Several surviving reliefs depict miners carrying mysterious objects resembling boxes, long tubes, or modular tools, unlike the well-known toolsets found in archaeological contexts. Though unverifiable, these depictions suggest that ancient Egyptian stoneworking may have been far more complex than modern reconstructions assume. Amid the vast desert, Wadi Hamamat appears as a secret industrial complex where successive dynasties quarried, modified, and perfected techniques, yet left no surviving evidence of their true tools. Some ancient inscriptions even describe rocks splitting with thunder, or stone faces opening at the priest's command, hinting that quarrying once intertwined with sacred rites. This deepens the mystery. Did they use chemical reactions, causing explosive sounds? Or were these metaphors for large-scale stone separation? No definitive answer exists. Furthermore, the transport of stones across treacherous desert terrain remains unexplained. Expedition accounts describe journeys shattered by sandstorms, drought raids, and even the wrath of the gods. Some inscriptions list the dead but omit technical details, implying that the method of transport might have been a guarded trade secret shared only within the mining workforce. Thus, the more researchers study Wadi Hamamat, the more it appears like a concealed chapter of history, a place where advanced technique, sacred ritual, desert spirituality, and royal authority merged in ways still impossible to unravel. The surviving reliefs, sometimes stylistically inconsistent, sometimes marked with symbols outside the known Egyptian repertoire, add to the enigma of a site that feels both familiar and alien. No one knows exactly where the Egyptians acquired their extraordinary quarrying skills, nor why they ceased using them. All we know is that the traces remaining at Wadi Hamamat exceed what we expect from ancient technology. And this contradiction makes Wadi Hamamat one of the enduring mysteries of the ancient Egyptian world. Do you think the super-advanced stone quarrying techniques at Wadi Hamamat are evidence of a lost technology or simply something we have not yet understood? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Malinalco Cuauhtli Temple is one of the most enigmatic structures of the Aztec civilization, where craftsmanship, strength, and religious devotion are fused into a unique monolithic stone construction. Although many Aztec temples impress with their scale and architectural artistry, Malinalco surpasses them all for a reason that has puzzled archaeologists for decades. The entire temple was carved directly into the mountainside, forming a sacred space that is rounded, refined, and balanced to a degree that no one can fully explain. While other civilizations left behind tool marks, stone joints, or at least construction layers, Malinalco appears as though a massive rock simply transformed into a completed architectural form, with the eagle and jaguar sculptures seamlessly emerging from the bedrock. This technique raises a major question. With tools made only of stone and copper, how did the Aztecs, or perhaps a secretive class of master craftsmen, carve, grind, shape, and finish such a complex structure inside the mountain? To create the central circular chamber, the craftsmen had to carve the rock from the inside out, along a perfectly curved line. Even the slightest miscalculation could distort the structure, cause cracks, or disrupt the symmetry. Yet at Malinalco, the curves, edges, steps, and recesses all display remarkable uniformity. Most extraordinary is the eagle sculpture at the center, not carved separately and placed into the temple, but formed from the very stone of the floor itself. This means the artisans not only had to remove stone to create space, but also had to precisely calculate which portion must remain to form the eagle before proceeding to carve its details. The planning alone required exceptional intellectual ability, not to mention the technical execution. What technique do you think allowed the Aztecs to carve an entire monolithic temple inside the mountain with such precision? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Researchers have tried to reconstruct the process, but all simulations encounter the same problem with Aztec tools. Carving deeply into stone with such smooth results seems nearly impossible. Stone chisels would wear out quickly, while copper is too soft for sharp cutting edges. The unexpectedly smooth surfaces inside the temple have led many to suspect that the Aztecs possessed some unrecorded technique for grinding or softening stone. Some bold theories propose the use of fire-water friction and natural minerals to fracture the rock, but no evidence supports this at the site. To this day, the mystery of how they created a monolithic structure without compromising the rock's integrity remains unsolved. Deeper inside, other features amplify the temple's strangeness. The two most important symbols are the eagle and the jaguar, sacred animals representing the Aztec elite warrior class. Both are carved directly from the stone, not placed later, with no joints or separations. The eagle, with folded wings and an open beak, appears ready to devour the gaze of anyone entering. The jaguar conveys an aura of vigilance, as if guarding the passage to a sacred realm. Their monolithic nature shrouds the temple's true function. Was this merely a ceremonial site or a training center where warriors underwent symbolic rebirth into eagles or jaguars? The rituals performed here are steeped in obscurity. Some theories suggest that warriors would enter the eagle's mouth as a symbolic act of rebirth under the sun's authority. Others believe this was the sacred place where eagle warriors, the most elite Aztec fighters, received their titles. Yet despite archaeological clues, no surviving Aztec text describes the specific rituals performed here. This makes Malinalco both revealing and concealed, as if intentionally reserved for a select group granted access. Additionally, the temple's layout aligns with Aztec cosmological symbolism. The narrow entrance is thought to represent a sacred cave, the the mythical origin of life. The circular chamber symbolizes the sun, or the cyclical nature of time. The steps ascending from lower to higher levels resemble the warrior's journey from mortal to divine. Some scholars associate this design with myths of the sun's birth at the eagle's nest, where the first light emerges each day. However, all interpretations remain speculative. Without original Aztec texts, the deeper meaning of this structure persists as an unsolved riddle. The temple's location adds yet more mystery. It sits at a significant elevation, accessible only through steep, winding paths unsuitable for the weak. Why did the Aztecs choose such a challenging place for an important ceremonial center? Was it intended to test participants, or did the site carry geomantic or spiritual significance sensed by its builders? No one knows for certain. Transporting materials and manpower up the mountain was already difficult. Carving a monolithic structure directly into the mountain was even more demanding. This combination of a perilous setting and unparalleled craftsmanship leads many to believe that Malinalco was not merely religious architecture, but a symbol of power, a declaration that Aztec warriors could enter the mountain and shape stone at will. Some astronomical features have also been observed. Sunlight enters the temple at specific times of the year, especially during solstices and seasonal transitions, illuminating certain carvings. This suggests the site may have been used not only for warrior rituals, but also for astronomical observations or marking sacred calendar dates. However, the precise purpose of these alignments remains unclear. They may relate to solar worship or the beginning of training cycles for warriors. One remarkable aspect of Malinalco is that it resembles no other Aztec structure ever discovered. Other temples and stepped pyramids were built using assembled stones with distinct walls, platforms, and pillars. Only Malinalco stands as an entire carved world within the mountain, with immovable, monolithic sacred sculptures. This stark difference raises questions. Was the site reserved for an esoteric group, a high-level initiation rite for only the most elite warriors? Or could it be a structure predating the Aztecs themselves, later adapted by them? Although unproven, the unusual nature of the temple continues to fuel speculation about its origins. Returning to the central theme, monolithic carving. This is the key that makes Malinalco one of the greatest archaeological mysteries of the Americas. The rock layers in the temple are moderately hard, but still extremely challenging to work with using primitive tools. Hollowing the chamber from within, maintaining perfect diameter and structural stability, and forming the eagle sculpture with precise proportion required not only physical labor, but advanced technical and mathematical skills. Every groove and recess reflects meticulous calculation. If a carver struck too deeply, even a single mistake would ruin the entire design irreversibly. This means the Aztecs must have possessed a mental blueprint or a technical tradition that has not survived into the present. For this reason, the Malinalco Quaucali is not just a temple. It is a mysterious declaration from the past, demonstrating a level of stoneworking skill that surpasses what current knowledge attributes to the technology of that era. The temple still stands still, resisting all modern attempts at replication, and still raises unanswered questions about how ancient people understood the cosmos' power and the spiritual rebirth of warriors. The Mont'e Prama giant statues are one of the most astonishing mysteries of Mediterranean archaeology, a cluster of colossal stone figures that lay silently for thousands of years beneath the arid soil of Sardinia, discovered only by chance in the 1970s, yet immediately overturning long-held assumptions about the development level of the Nuragic culture. Standing up to 2 meters tall and carved from single blocks of limestone, these statues appear like immortal guardians of a vanished world, and the deeper archaeologists investigate, the more they realize that the craftsmanship behind them far exceeds what was previously believed possible for the Nuragic people. stones were shaped with unbelievable precision. Curves, angles, flat surfaces, deep grooves, and geometric proportions all demonstrate a fully matured technical mindset. This raises the question of whether the Nuragic people possessed a sculptural technology that has since been lost. When standing before the large round faces with their mysterious, concentric circle eyes, one feels both a sense of aesthetic strangeness and amazement at the stylistic consistency. All warriors, archers, and boxers share the same geometric language, as if shaped according to a formalized system rather than the free creativity of individual artisans. This suggests the possible existence of a workshop system, a specialized group, or even a class of ancient sculptural engineers never recorded in history. Particularly striking is the ability to carve limestone to create smooth, flat surfaces and delicate details without breakage, a feat requiring extremely sharp tools, refined control, and deep knowledge of the material. Yet according to conventional accounts, the Nuragic people at that time only possessed early bronze and iron technology, far too rudimentary to achieve such cutting precision. This makes Mont'e Prama an archaeological paradox. Either the civilization has been underestimated, or there is something still hidden in their technical history that modern science has yet to reconstruct. If the Nuragic people truly possessed advanced sculpting and construction techniques, as demonstrated by Mont'e Prama, where do you think they learned? This technology developed it on their own, inherited it from an older civilization, or were influenced by a completely mysterious source of knowledge? Share your thoughts in the comments below. What puzzles researchers is not only the sculpting itself. The way the statues were assembled, transported, and erected also far exceeds the capabilities traditionally attributed to the Nuragic people. Each statue can weigh several hundred kilograms, and they were positioned in rows near elite tombs, indicating a large-scale, highly organized construction effort. Transporting such massive stone blocks would require systems of pulleys, sledges, or comparable mechanical solutions, yet no direct evidence of such tools has been found in the region. While no one dares claim the existence of advanced technology, the technical paradox remains evident in every detail, forcing scholars to acknowledge that the mechanical knowledge of the Nuragic people may have been far richer than once believed. Many researchers have compared the refinement of Mont'e Prama with stoneworks of Egypt or the Levant from the same era, but the stylistic differences are so distinct that theories of borrowed techniques are difficult to sustain. Instead, it appears that the Nuragic culture independently developed a unique sculptural technology, a style unseen anywhere else in Europe at the time. Most notably, the concentric circle eyes, carved deeply and with precise regularity, require some form of drilling or rotary instrument beyond what is currently evidenced in the archaeological record. Even stranger is that these statues do not depict humans in a naturalistic manner, but in a metaphysical form. Oversized heads, box-shaped torsos, simplified limbs, and rigid postures. Some believe they represent legendary Nuragic heroes. Others interpret them as divine symbols. Still others think the non-realistic forms were meant to evoke spiritual presence during rituals, yet despite their symbolic nature, the execution requires high precision, showing that Nuragic artisans not only possessed skill, but displayed advanced technical reasoning. Particularly impressive are the boxer statues, whose stone gloves are hollowed and shaped with complex curves impossible to produce using rudimentary tools. The warrior statues, with their large shields, swords, and chest armor, also display sharply defined cuts, reflecting a clear understanding of force and abrasive methods. When modern experts attempt to recreate the statues using tools known from the Nuragic era, the results are always rough, lacking sharpness, and prone to chipping, never approaching the refined quality of the originals. This reinforces the idea that the Nuragic people had access to a technique or toolset that remains undiscovered. Another major mystery is why the statues were smashed into more than 5,000 fragments. If invaders destroyed them, this implies their political or religious significance. If the Nuragic people themselves broke them as part of a ritual killing of statues, it would dramatically reshape our understanding of their spiritual world. Strangely, however, there is no evidence of major conflict in the Mont'e Prama area during the relevant period, making the destruction an unanswered question. Some scholars argue that the technical sophistication embodied in the statues may have provoked fear or social upheaval, leading to their intentional destruction. But this remains speculative. The most important aspect, and the central mystery, is that the statues demonstrate a level of sculptural ability, organization, and technical reasoning far beyond what traditional archaeology attributes to the Nuragic people. Before Mont'e Prama, the Nuragic culture was viewed as a semi-agricultural, tribal society with basic technology. But these colossal statues tell a different story. They had highly skilled artisans capable of working stone with remarkable precision. They had systems for transporting and erecting massive structures. They had a unified artistic code indicating complex abstract thinking. The existence of such a large statue assemblage implies that the Nuragic civilization may have been far more advanced than previously believed. Many archaeologists are now re-evaluating Nuragic architectural works, especially the Nuraha towers, from a more technically advanced perspective, considering the possibility that Mont'e Prama is merely the visible fragment of a lost technological tradition. Putting all the evidence together, the Mont'e Prama giant statues become the symbol of a paradox. The deeper they are studied, the more one must admit that the technical capabilities of the Nuragic people far exceed the societal model described by traditional history. This raises further questions: how much of their technology, craftsmanship, and knowledge remains undiscovered beneath the soil? Were the Nuragic people a vastly underestimated civilization or remnants of an even older Mediterranean technical tradition? No definitive answers exist, but one thing is clear: Mont'e Prama is not merely a collection of statues. It is a clue to a hidden history, a trace of intellect beyond what we normally attribute to the ancient world, and even today, it stands as a challenge to every attempt at deciphering the past. The origins of the Kumbhalgarh Wall, also known as the Great Wall of India, have long been a major archaeological question, because what remains not only challenges the construction capabilities of the Rajputs, but also breaks every conventional notion about engineering manpower and organizational scale in medieval India. The wall stretches over 36 kilometers, running along rugged mountain slopes and encircling the entire Kumbhalgarh fort like a colossal stone serpent. Yet what puzzles researchers the most is not its length nor its height, but its unreasonable thickness. Some sections are nearly 8 meters wide, enough for 5 or 6 people to walk side by side, far more massive than any defensive requirement of contemporary Rajput fortifications. When placed within the technical and material conditions of the 15th century, constructing such a wall seems beyond realistic capability, raising numerous questions about logistics, labor force, transportation methods, and the true purpose of the structure. Why do you think the ancient builders constructed a wall with such an absurd thickness? Was it purely for defense, or might there have been another hidden purpose? Share your thoughts in the comments below. What makes the wall difficult to explain is that it was built on the Aravalli mountain range, where steep slopes, narrow pathways, and uneven, rocky ground dominate the landscape. Transporting large stone blocks up such elevations, then arranging them in even layers with tightly fitted joints, using minimal binding material, demands skill and manpower at a nearly unimaginable level. Archaeology has found sections of the wall built with interlocking monolithic stones placed in a staggered pattern to increase load-bearing strength, showing that ancient builders understood weight distribution very well. Yet how they quarried, moved, and handled these heavy stones in such treacherous terrain remains completely unanswered. No Rajput or Jain historical record provides detailed accounts of the construction process, and even the well-documented archives of the Muwa court offer no complete descriptions, making the entire structure appear as though it emerged from nowhere, fully formed and surpassing all known standards. When examining the foundation layers, researchers discovered traces of older structures, possibly belonging to pre-Rajput communities, indicating that the wall was not built in one phase but accumulated over multiple generations. Yet this only deepens the logistical riddle. Could several consecutive generations each possess the resources to rebuild and expand sections of wall up to 8 meters thick? And why was such thickness necessary? At this scale, the wall remained almost impregnable. Many powerful armies besieged the fort but failed to breach it. However, some scholars argue that 8 meters far exceeded the needs of warfare in that era, unless the wall served purposes beyond defense. One hypothesis suggests that its colossal mass was intended to form a natural artificial defense ecosystem integrated with the mountainous landscape, making approach extremely difficult. Another proposes that the wall once concealed huge granaries, secret supply routes, or underground tunnels that remain undiscovered or buried today. A closer look reveals a striking mismatch between the wall's demands and the known abilities of the period. A structure 8 meters thick requires immense quantities of material and a highly coordinated labor system, from quarrying stone, transportation, surface treatment, and layering to controlling the curvature of the wall as it hugs the mountain terrain. Typically, a wall only 2 or 3 meters thick on flat ground already requires thousands of workers for many years. So how many were needed for 8 meters on steep mountains? How long did they work? How did they live, eat, and transport materials in a place with no proper roads and no machinery? No construction plans exist, no recorded workforce numbers, no timeline. This leads many scholars to believe that either the court intentionally concealed the construction process for military secrecy, or the information was entirely lost during historical upheavals. Another viewpoint suggests that the wall's engineering was the result of combining the long-standing experience of Aravalli stone masons with traditional Rajput building practices, which relied heavily on using natural terrain. Instead of transporting stone from the foothills, they might have quarried rock directly from the mountainside, reducing logistics significantly. However, this still does not explain an 8-meter thickness, as local stone would not be sufficient for such a massive structure. Some geophysical surveys show that the stones used came from multiple quarries, meaning materials were indeed transported from afar. This reinforces the mystery of logistics. What caravans, tools, transport systems, or lifting methods enabled them to move multi-ton stones up the mountain? Did they use rope pulley systems, temporary roads, or giant wooden ramps? No direct evidence supports any specific theory. Folk stories surrounding the wall add yet another layer of mystery. It is said that during the early construction stage, the wall's foundation kept collapsing, forcing Maharana Kumbha to seek advice from a hermit. The hermit claimed that only a voluntary human sacrifice could stabilize the structure. A man later offered himself, walking to the site where the main gate now stands. This legend reflects local beliefs in the fort's sacredness, but it also indirectly suggests the technical difficulties the builders faced: weak foundations, unstable rock layers, and the enormous challenge of reinforcement without machinery. This raises a question: did they possess some now-lost method of ground stabilization? Inside the walls, the presence of more than 360 temples adds to the mystery of the fort's origins. Why were so many temples needed within a military fortress? Some scholars propose that the area was once a major religious center, and the wall expanded over generations to protect monastic communities and ritual assets. However, the temples are irregularly distributed, many built right along the edges of the wall, suggesting the wall may have existed before many temples were constructed. This again places the wall as the earliest architectural layer, not merely a product of a single dynasty. The wall's grandeur becomes even more bewildering when considering how little it was mentioned for centuries. A structure this massive should appear frequently in historical texts, yet the records are strangely silent. This leads archaeologists to suspect that the wall's true purpose might have been deliberately concealed, or the documents describing it were lost during wars. Others believe it served a secret military role in the Muir strategy, so technical information was never documented. But the greatest mystery, and the central question, with no convincing answer, remains its 8-meter thickness. Why build a wall so thick? Was it intended for defense symbolic power, or something else entirely? Could it relate to older constructions predating the Rajputs? Or was it the product of an organizational system we no longer understand? Each question opens more theories, yet none are definitive. The ancient builders left behind a colossal wall, far exceeding the needs of warfare, defying typical engineering norms, as if they intended to send a message about their organizational capacity, their technical mastery, or lost construction knowledge that modern times still cannot fully interpret. On the slopes of Mount Ida, where the wind howls year-round and winter snows blanket the Siluritis region, there exists a place that has compelled generations of scholars to bow before its strange fusion of myth and archaeology, the Idaean cave, the site associated by legend with the childhood of Zeus. Yet beyond the mythic tales, the true value of this cave lies in the religious traces, rituals, and votive practices that took place continuously for millennia. There are no surrounding cities, no signs of habitation, no settled civilization to explain its concentration of power and reverence. Yet archaeological evidence shows that Idaean was once one of the most important ceremonial centers of the Minoans, the ancient Greeks, and even later the Romans. Within the cave, researchers identified layers of man-made architectural structures, flat stone platforms created for offerings, and sacred pits used for ritual burning, all woven together with cultural sediments accumulated across thousands of years. Why do you think thousands of finely crafted metal artifacts were found in the Idaean cave without leaving any trace of a metalworking workshop? Share your theory in the comments below. But what makes Idaean cave mysterious is not only the legend of a god hidden away to escape Cronus' destruction. It is also the artifacts found here. Thousands of exquisitely crafted metal objects, from small bronze figurines, miniature shields, ritual knives, gold ornaments, and lead offerings to ceremonial tools whose refined craftsmanship far surpasses what one would expect from remote mountain regions. And this fact raises a major unanswered question: where did all this metal come from? How was it crafted? And why are there absolutely no traces of a metalworking workshop, smelting furnace, or settlement capable of producing such an enormous quantity of objects anywhere near the cave? These metal items were not merely decorative. Many carried profound religious symbolism, with detailed motifs and sharp engravings that reflect advanced metallurgical ability. Typically, major ceremonial centers of the ancient world were closely tied to settlements, wealthy, populous places, with enough resources to sustain rituals and offerings. But at Idaean, everything is reversed. There are no fortifications, no houses, no cemeteries, no administrative structures, only a natural temple within the mountain, bearing the traces of people who visited and departed, bringing goods, small weapons, and ritual objects to place into the sacred darkness of the cave. This has led researchers to believe that those who journeyed here must have traveled from very distant population centers, carrying finely crafted votive offerings as part of religious submission, and viewing this place as a gateway between the mortal world and the divine. Yet the greatest mystery revolves around why there is no evidence whatsoever of metal production in the region. Normally, any location with such an immense quantity of artifacts would leave traces of a workshop metal slag furnace, remains crafting tools, or debris from shaping processes. But at Idaean, excavations dug meters deep and still revealed nothing but finished offerings. It seems everything was created elsewhere, transported along treacherous mountain paths to an altitude of nearly 1,500 meters and placed into the cave as an act of absolute devotion. The absence of workshop remains demands a reasonable explanation, yet no existing hypothesis fully suffices. Some scholars argue that the artifacts were produced in major Minoan centers like Knossos or Phaistos and later carried here as part of a religious journey. Others suggest that some objects could have been crafted in small mountain settlements now erased by time. However, the weakness of this theory is that if workshops existed, at least some metallurgical residue should remain, yet none does. This raises the question, did Idaean Cave hold such a sacred status that all crafting activities had to take place elsewhere, ensuring the location was never polluted by the smell of molten metal, the hammering of tools, or the traces of production? Or was it considered so holy that only perfect, completed objects could be brought inside, while no human was allowed to forge anything within the divine space? Whatever the truth may be, the concentration of exquisite objects in such an extremely remote location remains an archaeological paradox that modern science cannot fully decipher. Even more striking, many metal artifacts from Idaean exhibit artistic styles not fully aligned with any known cultural center, suggesting either that this mountain once held a role far beyond current understanding, or that a much more complex religious cultural network existed in the ancient world. The deeper one ventures into the cave, the more apparent it becomes that the ritual architecture within does not match natural cave formations. There are traces of flat platforms, intentionally erected stone altars, and circular pits, resembling structures used for burning offerings, indicating rituals of considerable scale once took place here. But how could such rituals occur in harsh mountain conditions, cold climate, fierce winds, dangerous paths? This underscores that those who reached Idaean were no ordinary visitors. They were pilgrim groups, ceremonial delegations, perhaps even religious orders with spiritual devotion and organizational strength surpassing physical limitations. The existence of carved symbols, many of which do not match linear A or linear B, adds yet another layer of mystery. They seem to depict rituals of fertility, rebirth, or connections between the divine and human realms, but to this day remain only partially understood. A place with no inhabitants and no workshops, yet one that hosted continuous religious activity for 3,000 years and accumulated a massive amount of refined metal offerings, is clearly no ordinary sight. Idaean Cave stands as a cultural and spiritual crossroads where myth and archaeology intertwine inseparably. The enigma of Section 6,000 of finished metal objects without any trace of production makes this cave one of the greatest mysteries of the Aegean ancient world. It challenges economic logic, religious understanding, and even our assumptions about how ancient people conceived and organized sacred spaces. Perhaps within the darkness of Idaean, the only certainty is this: the ancients regarded it not merely as a cave, but as a doorway to the realm of the gods, a place where every offering had to be flawless, brought from faraway lands, carried across perilous mountains, and placed within as the ultimate act of reverence, without, and perhaps forbidden from, leaving any earthly trace of its creation. Gebel el-Silsila, a rocky region stretching along the Nile between Kom Ombo and Edfu, has long been regarded as one of the least frequently mentioned sites in ancient Egyptian history, yet it played a pivotal role in shaping the monumental constructions of the pharaohs. It was simultaneously Egypt's most important sandstone quarry, a landscape of rock-cut shrines carved directly into cliff faces, and a repository of mysterious ritual traces that have never been fully explained. Among its many striking features, the story of this massive sandstone extraction center, the material source that built an empire, remains the aspect that most fascinates and perplexes archaeologists. Evidence found on site suggests that the ancient Egyptians possessed stoneworking abilities far beyond what is considered possible for their technological era. Standing within Gebel el-Silsila, one senses the scale of an ancient construction factory where every cut, every abandoned block seems to hold an unspoken secret. What do you think the ancient Egyptians used to create such incredibly precise sandstone cuts far beyond the technology of their time? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The sandstone cliffs here stretch like colossal natural walls bearing hundreds of thousands of marks left by Egyptian craftsmen, marks that suggest an industrial-level quarrying system filled with paradoxes. The extracted blocks are astonishingly flat and straight, difficult to reconcile with tools made of copper or copper alloy, the only metal confirmed to exist during the New Kingdom. The rock surfaces show smooth, consistent separation marks along long grooves, as though a tool sharper than any metal of that time had been used. Some multi-ton blocks appear to have been cut in a single continuous motion, rather than by the slow repetitive chipping described in traditional theories. Numerous researchers have attempted to recreate this technique using wooden wedges soaked in water or classical chiseling methods, yet none have been able to achieve the same level of precision seen at Gebel el-Silsila. This fuels speculation that the ancient Egyptians may have possessed a sophisticated quarrying technique now lost to history, or that they used special tools which time has erased completely from the archaeological record. Regardless the fact that thousands of sandstone blocks were transported downstream to build monumental temples such as Karnak, Luxor, Edfu, and Kom Ombo reveals Gebel el-Silsila as the material lung of ancient Egypt, an indispensable component in the rise of one of humanity's greatest civilizations. A closer examination of the quarry walls reveals sequences of circular drill holes of identical diameter, something many experts believe could not have been produced by simple manual techniques. Some abandoned blocks exhibit surfaces so smooth and even that their creation with hammer and chisel seems nearly impossible. Certain vertical quarry faces rise tens of meters high, with no trace of scaffolding or footholds, prompting the question, how did ancient workers access and operate at such heights? Several nearly completed blocks were never transported, as though work had abruptly ceased, with no discernible cause. Geological studies show that extraction rates during the reign of Ramesses II surged dramatically, far exceeding what the documented labor force could have achieved. All these clues together create the impression that some unknown element, a technique or workforce not yet identified, was once present in this region and helped shape Egyptian architecture in ways the modern world cannot fully replicate. But Gebel el-Silsila is not known solely for its quarrying role. The network of rock-cut shrines along both banks of the Nile is itself a major archaeological mystery. These shrines were carved directly into the cliffs, displaying unusual layouts, lacking uniformity, and diverging from the standardized architectural models of Egyptian temples. Many align with the sunrise during specific ceremonial days, yet others deviate entirely as if they were built according to a ritual cycle still unknown to researchers. Inside the shrines lie unfinished reliefs, some merely outlined, others half-completed before being mysteriously abandoned. What is puzzling is that this abandonment appears to have occurred simultaneously across multiple shrines of the same period, suggesting a sudden event that affected the artisans and priests working here. However, no evidence of warfare or natural disaster has been recorded in this region during that time. Some propose that the royal court altered its religious practices, diminishing the importance of these shrines. Others speculate that a spiritual or ritual prohibition may have halted construction. Yet all reasoning remains speculative. The cracks and deep grooves at Gebel el-Silsila further contribute to its air of mystery. Some straight channels carved along cliff faces appear as if sliced by a massive blade rather than produced by wooden wedges. Several rectangular pits perfectly shaped but showing no indication of having contained quarried blocks raise the question, were these functional quarry features or ritual structures? One theory connects them to a rare Egyptian ritual known as the opening of the path for the soul, suggesting that such features symbolically linked the physical world to the spiritual realm. Yet no ancient text confirms this. The ambiguity only deepens, making Gebel el-Silsila one of the most intellectually provocative sites for scholars studying Egyptian religious practices. The deeper one explores the region, the more enigmas appear. Some reliefs depict pharaohs performing rituals at Gebel el-Silsila, indicating that the site once held religious significance. Strangely, however, almost no ancient documents explain its ceremonial purpose. A quarry, a place of cutting, carrying and shaping stone, should not be a sacred space, yet the reliefs show elaborate worship scenes. This fuels the theory that Gebel el-Silsila may have been a secret ritual center reserved for select priestly groups. Still, the idea remains unproven, due to the complete absence of ritual manuals or inscriptions clarifying its function. Recent ground-penetrating radar surveys reveal the possibility of large man-made foundations buried beneath layers of sand and rock. Straight lines, right angles, and platform-like shapes suggest that a temple or ritual complex may once have stood here, now concealed by the desert over millennia. Yet the area's immense size and difficult geology make a full excavation nearly impossible for now. Combined, all these elements form the enigmatic portrait of Gebel el-Silsila, a quarrying center with techniques beyond its era, a ritual landscape undocumented in any surviving texts, a series of rock shrines with unconventional layouts, abandoned constructions without explanation, cutting marks that modern engineers cannot replicate, and subterranean traces hinting at a lost monumental structure. The site feels like a faded memory, one where pharaohs once left their imprint, only for time to cloak it beneath layers of mystery. To archaeologists, Gebel el-Silsila is not merely a source of data, but a challenge in itself. Do we truly understand the full extent of ancient Egyptian skill, belief, and capability, or are the remnants here merely the surface of a far greater knowledge system lost across the millennia? On the desolate summit of Mount Ebal, where layers of grey stone have been carved by wind over millennia, lies a stone structure that seems anonymous at first glance, but has become the center of one of the fiercest debates in Near Eastern archaeology. This structure, composed of tiered stone platforms, layers of ash and animal bones, and an overall shape reminiscent of ancient ritual practices, has prompted researchers to repeatedly ask, could this be the altar built by Joshua, the figure said to have led the Israelites into Canaan, as described in the Hebrew Bible? What makes this mystery so haunting is that all the evidence found here exists in a state of half-true, half-false, half-supporting, and half-contradicting every claim made about it. Every time scholars feel they are close to an answer, a new detail seems to pull them further away. What do you think the half-true, half-false nature of the evidence at Mount Ebal really suggests? Could this be the actual altar of Joshua, or merely an anonymous ritual site that coincidentally matches ancient descriptions? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When the site was excavated in the 1980s, The archaeological team quickly realized that the structure did not bear the hallmarks of a settlement. There were no traces of houses, no hearths, and no signs of long-term human habitation. Instead, they found stacked stones, forming a raised, multi-layered platform, resembling an altar, surrounded by crude stone walls lacking defensive function. The initial impression was not of a dwelling place, but of a ritual site. This immediately positioned it as a candidate for religious hypotheses, especially since it aligned strikingly well with ancient descriptions of sacrificial locations. When the burned animal bones were analyzed, the mystery deepened. The remains were identified as belonging to cattle, sheep, and goats, the three clean animals permitted for sacrificial rituals under ancient Hebrew law. No pig bones or remains of animals considered unclean were found. While skeptics saw this as potentially coincidental, those who believe in the historical reliability of the Bible argued that the likelihood of an ancient sacrificial site located precisely on Mount Ebal, containing only bones, matching Hebrew sacrificial requirements, was too unlikely to ignore. Each bone fragment became like an echo from the past, evoking the image of rituals once carried out on this high summit. However, archaeology demands more than resemblance. No inscriptions mentioning Joshua were found, no distinct Israelite religious symbols appeared, no identifiable ritual objects characteristic of ancient Israel were uncovered. These kinds of artifacts would have provided undeniable evidence. Relying solely on similarities to identify a historical figure is something modern science avoids. Yet paradoxically, the more scholars studied the site, the more similarities emerged. And this is precisely the foundation of the debate that has persisted to this day. The dating of pottery fragments found at the site only intensified the dilemma. They belonged to the late Bronze Age and early Iron Age, exactly the period in which the biblical texts placed Joshua and the Israelites. Supporters saw this as the final puzzle piece completing the picture. Meanwhile, critics argued that this time frame was common across many cultures in Canaan, and chronological overlap did not necessarily indicate the structure's origin. Another mysterious aspect of the site is its two overlapping architectural layers. The lower layer appears rougher and smaller than perhaps an early version of an altar. The upper layer is larger, seemingly built to expand ritual capacity and exhibiting many characteristics consistent with a developed sacrificial structure. Supporters argued this matched the tradition of altar expansion in ancient Israelite practices. Skeptics countered that building atop an older foundation was a common behavior among ancient communities and should not be taken as religious evidence. And so we reach the core of the debate. The most difficult and divisive question: is this truly Joshua's altar? This is not merely an archaeological question. It concerns religious history, the authenticity of ancient texts, and beliefs held for thousands of years. For those who trust tradition, the structure on Mount Ebal appears to be the first physical evidence hinting at the historical reality of the events described in the Bible. Matching location aligned. Architecture, clean animal bones, accurate chronology, everything seems to converge on a single answer. Yet for archaeologists who adopt a skeptical approach, this is considered a premature conclusion. They argue that the alignment of details may be the result of confirmation bias. People find what they want to find. Canaan at the time housed various communities with rituals similar to animal sacrifice. The absence of distinct Israelite pottery, the lack of Hebrew inscriptions, and the absence of recognizable symbols significantly weaken the claim that this is Joshua's altar. Without concrete physical evidence, they argue such assertions remain speculative. Non-religious hypotheses propose that the structure could have been an agricultural installation or even a dumping site for animal remains. Yet the layers of ash and burned bones the altar-like stone arrangement, and the complete lack of agricultural traces all undermine these interpretations. Thus, most scholars agree that this was indeed a ritual site, though whose ritual site it was remains uncertain. The mystery of the Mount Ebal altar structure persists precisely because of its in-between nature. The evidence is not strong enough to confirm it as Joshua's altar, but also not weak enough to dismiss the possibility. It stands between two worlds, between faith and science, between tradition and analysis, between the hope of finding historical proof and the reality that the past often leaves only faint traces. This ambiguous state is what turns the site into a true archaeological enigma, the kind where even one small clue could change the entire narrative. Until an inscription, a symbol, or an undeniable artifact is discovered, the Mount Ebal altar structure will remain on the windswept summit, silently resisting every attempt at interpretation. It may indeed be the first altar of ancient Israel, as many hope, or it may be the ritual remnant of an unnamed Canaanite community. But until the mystery is resolved, it will continue to be one of the greatest unanswered questions in biblical archaeology, and a reminder that the past often guards its secrets well. Mount Arbel cliff fortifications is one of the most difficult to explain cliffside defensive complexes in the Galilee region, where ancient people built a sophisticated fortification system embedded directly into towering vertical rock walls. The most extraordinary aspect of Mount Arbel lies in the fact that the entire system, from living quarters, corridors, lookout platforms to access routes, was carved straight into a nearly vertical cliff face, a construction task that even modern engineering must approach with extreme caution. When examining the site, specialists identified hundreds of construction traces such as scaffolding holes, straight chisel grooves, half-finished stone steps, and sections abandoned mid-work. These traces indicate that ancient workers had to undertake extremely dangerous procedures, suspending themselves on ropes, creating temporary platforms in mid-air, transporting materials, using primitive pulleys, and facing constant risk of falling into the abyss. All of this raises a major question about how a community more than 2,000 years ago could achieve such precision and scale in an environment that is almost impossible to work in. What do you think was the most crucial factor that allowed ancient builders to construct a fortress carved into an almost impossible vertical cliff? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The impossible nature becomes even clearer when geological studies show that most of Arbel's cliff face consists of hard, brittle limestone, requiring controlled carving techniques to avoid collapsing the entire structure. The ability to create flat rooms near vertical passages and interior spaces of stable dimensions demonstrates an advanced understanding of material properties. Some sections were carved to form drainage channels, ventilation holes, and stone platforms, reflecting careful planning rather than hurried construction. Many scholars have compared Mount Arbel to other cliffside structures in the Mediterranean region, but still find it superior in difficulty and strategic use of terrain. Upon entering Arbel's interior chambers, one can see a multi-level cave system arranged vertically with varying depths. Some caves are connected by narrow corridors, while others require climbing uneven stone steps or navigating through openings barely wide enough for one person. These levels appear to be functionally divided storage areas, food reserves, communal shelters, weapon rooms, and even command spaces. The internal organization clearly reflects military thinking, not natural formation, but are carved into the mountain base. Primitive stone pipes and natural channels were utilized to collect rainwater, ensuring defenders could hold out for a long time. Some caves have defensive ledges and lookout openings facing the Gennesaret Valley, providing wide visibility to detect enemies from afar. Historical records note that Mount Arbel was used during the Jewish revolts against Rome, particularly under Herod. However, much of the construction predates these conflicts by a significant margin. Some rock-carved sections exhibit very ancient characteristics inconsistent with Herodian architectural style, leading researchers to suspect that the fortifications may have been created by an earlier community and later expanded or reused. The mystery deepens because no historical sources describe the construction process, the labor force involved, or the techniques used to transform a cliff face into a fortress. This lack of documentation adds to the overall enigma of the site. Mount Arbel's geographical position indicates its immense strategic value. The tall, sheer cliffs form a natural barrier that is difficult to approach from any direction. Roman forces once had to employ a rare tactic, a tilted assault bridge anchored along the mountainside to reach defenders entrenched deep within the cliff. This demonstrates that the ancient occupants understood the terrain's advantages and intentionally designed defenses that forced attackers to rely on unusual and costly siege techniques. Exterior stone platforms were positioned for optimal angles of attack, allowing defenders to throw stones, shoot arrows, or use other ranged weapons with maximum effect. The combination of artificial structures and natural cliff features created a fortress that was nearly inaccessible without a large, specially equipped force. Inside certain caves are concealed entrances and secret corridors descending or extending horizontally along the cliff. Many of these openings are extremely narrow or now blocked by collapsed stones, leading archaeologists to believe that much of Arbel's system remains unexplored. Recent surveys confirm that several chambers cannot yet be accessed due to safety concerns. These uncharted areas may contain important information about early social organization, military activity, or daily tools and weapons. However, much of the system remains beyond present-day reach because of the cliff's inherent danger. The refined craftsmanship within Arbel adds further complexity. Some stone platforms are polished remarkably smooth, showing that ancient builders not only carved the rock, but also treated its surface through deliberate grinding techniques. Grooves running along the walls may once have held wooden beams or doors, indicating a structured, enclosed internal layout. Certain wall holes are symmetrically carved, likely used to anchor scaffolding or wooden beds. Their placement is far from random, reflecting an understanding of load distribution, ventilation, and safe construction practices. The identity of the builders remains unresolved. If the structure predates Herod, who were the first group with the skills and motivation to build a fortress into a vertical cliff. If extremist Jewish groups expanded it during conflict periods, why do the construction techniques surpass many contemporary fortifications? And if the Romans ever approached the site, did they leave any structural influence? None of these questions currently have definitive answers. Archaeologists believe that a combination of refuge, needs, defensive requirements, and harsh terrain motivated a highly skilled group to create the complex, but the specific cultural identity remains unclear. One notable feature is how effectively ancient people exploited natural terrain to create passive defense. Entrances were placed in locations difficult to see from the valley below, some concealed by natural ledges or recesses. This obscured the real layout of the base from enemies. Carving paths along natural slopes made movement safer for inhabitants familiar with the terrain, while outsiders would find it unpredictable. This seamless integration of architecture and landscape reflects strategic engineering thinking far beyond makeshift refuge systems and comparable to professional fortress design. To this day, Mount Arbel cliff fortifications remains exceptional when examined through the lens of cliff construction techniques. Among numerous ancient rock-cut structures in the Near East and Mediterranean, Few match Arbel's difficulty, where a near-vertical cliff serves as the sole foundation for an entire complex. Constructing it likely required a team knowledgeable in rock mechanics, capable of working in hazardous conditions, and able to design interior spaces with precise calculations. Modern excavations have revealed only a small part of the system. Most of it is still hidden by terrain and time. The existence of such a large-scale structure on a vertical cliff makes Mount Arbel one of the major archaeological mysteries in Israel. It not only raises questions about construction skills, but also about the motivations and circumstances of the community that lived or hid here. How did they transport tools, support one another, and sustain construction in such dangerous conditions? Was there a coordinated engineering team? And could the unexplored sections hold information that might alter our understanding of the region's history? Until these questions are answered, Mount Arbel Cliff fortifications will remain one of the clearest demonstrations of ancient humanity's ability to transform harsh natural environments into formidable strongholds using techniques we still consider nearly impossible. The Sanchi Great Stupa relic chamber, hidden deep within the massive dome that has existed for more than 2 millennia, has always been regarded as one of the most enigmatic sacred chambers in ancient Buddhist architecture. Since the time of King Ashoka, this structure has served as a place to enshrine holy relics, yet everything occurring inside the relic chamber, from its construction and sealing methods to the objects stored within, continues to provoke scholarly debate. The exterior of the Sanchi Great Stupa may be familiar to millions of visitors and researchers, but it is the silent inner space where bone fragments, sacred remains, and exquisitely crafted reliquary boxes are kept that gives the site a mysterious aura, extending beyond conventional archaeology. In your opinion, what is the most mysterious aspect inside the Sanchi relic chamber? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Archaeological excavations across different periods show that the relic chamber was assembled from massive monolithic stones, fitted together without mortar, yet so tightly sealed that they could hardly be separated without destroying the entire joint system. This raises questions about the extraordinarily advanced construction techniques of ancient India at a time when complex metal tools were not widely documented. However, the structural mystery alone is not the most fascinating part. The true wonder lies in the relic containers discovered inside. The reliquary boxes are astonishingly refined, far surpassing the expected craftsmanship of more than 2,000 years ago. They were made from fine sandstone, steatite, crystal-clear quartz, and even ivory or precious metals. Their remarkable quality lies not only in their beauty, but also in their near-perfect precision. Some stone boxes have lids that seal so tightly that opening them produces a sound like two glass surfaces sliding apart. Other boxes have narrow mouths and thin walls, yet show no trace of primitive tool marks. This has led many researchers to speculate that ancient artisans might have possessed micro-engineering level skills in grinding, hollowing, polishing, and measurement skills that, viewed through a modern lens, challenge our assumptions about the technological capabilities of their civilization. Why were these tiny containers crafted with such extraordinary precision? Were they only meant to protect relics, or did they also serve symbolic, ritualistic, or even esoteric religious purposes? Many of the crystal boxes display a level of purity that seems almost unbelievable, indicating that ancient crystal working techniques were far from rudimentary. Some steatite boxes were polished to a glossy enamel-like smoothness, with lids fitting their bodies so flawlessly they resemble objects measured with modern laser tools. Others bear minuscule Brahmi inscriptions, sharp uniform, and seemingly created with extremely fine metal tools. These artifacts have become the center of academic debate for decades. Did 3rd century BCE India genuinely possess far more advanced craftsmanship than recorded? Or was there a secret lineage of artisanship that left no trace in history? Even more puzzling, several reliquary boxes contain complex internal structures. Some have double compartments. Others feature spiral-shaped hollows, features rarely seen in typical religious objects. This strengthens the theory that their design served ritualistic meanings, with each cavity and drilled channel symbolizing cosmological or doctrinal concepts of early Buddhism. Reliquaries made of metal or decorated with elaborate carvings further suggest that they may have been produced in royal workshops under Ashoka's patronage, places where skill and technique reached near esoteric levels. This very detail makes the exquisitely crafted mysterious reliquary boxes, their materials and techniques, an irresistible focal point in the entire narrative of the Sanchi relic chamber. These reliquary boxes hold not only material or religious value, but also represent a level of technical sophistication far beyond common assumptions. When the British excavated Sanchi in the 19th century, they were astonished to find these objects remaining in almost perfect condition. They had not decayed or cracked, proving that both craftsmanship and preservation techniques were remarkably advanced. Some boxes even contained tiny bone fragments, crystal particles, or enigmatic organic residues that have yet to be fully analyzed today. The presence of multiple styles of reliquary boxes within a single chamber suggests that the relics were moved, redistributed, and re-enshrined several times. This aligns with the known history of the Sanchi stupa, which underwent multiple construction phases under Ashoka and subsequent dynasties. But the critical question remains: where were the relics originally placed? Did the most refined boxes belong to the earliest building phase or to later renovations? If the former is true, then the high craftsmanship becomes even harder to explain. If the latter, then what caused such extraordinary skills to disappear suddenly in later periods? The relic chamber also shows strange features. Related to sealing, large stone slabs were stacked to lock the chamber using weight and natural friction, creating a closure that required no permanent doorway. After the relics were placed inside, ancient builders simply sealed the temporary opening with massive stones, transforming the chamber into an impenetrable tomb. This raises the question of whether the chamber was intended solely as a storage space, or whether it served a ritual role in isolating and safeguarding sacred spiritual energy according to ancient beliefs. Cross-referencing archaeological data, many scholars believe that the Sanchi hilltop may have been a sacred site even before Buddhism. Ashoka's decision to build the stupa here may not have been arbitrary. It is possible that beneath the current soil layers, or even deeper within the bedrock, older structures or pre-Buddhist sanctuaries exist. If so, this could explain why the relic chamber was placed at the exact center and protected so thoroughly. Modern ground-penetrating radar surveys have even detected anomalous voids beneath the stupa, though it remains unclear whether these represent hidden chambers or natural formations. Still, the possibility of undiscovered architectural spaces continues to excite researchers. Ultimately, the relic chamber's true purpose remains unresolved. If it was merely a place for public veneration, why was it permanently sealed? If it was intended for rituals reserved for high-ranking monastics, why is there no evidence of regular access? And if it functioned as a kind of spiritual seal, as seen in other ancient belief systems, what led its builders to believe that the relics required absolute concealment? These unanswered questions, combined with the astonishing reliquary boxes, small yet technologically baffling, have turned the Sanchi Great Stupa relic chamber into one of the greatest archaeological mysteries in Buddhist history. It is not only a repository of sacred remains, but also a concealed message from the past, reminding us that ancient civilizations may have possessed knowledge and abilities far beyond what we currently understand. The Thapsos Megara Hyblia tombs present one of the most enigmatic funerary landscapes of Bronze Age Sicily, a necropolis whose architectural sophistication and cultural complexity continue to puzzle researchers. While the material culture of Thapsos already shows strong maritime contacts and an active role in Eastern Mediterranean networks, it is within the tombs, particularly the multi-chambered subterranean structures, that scholars encounter the most striking evidence of a society whose technical abilities appear to exceed what is typically expected of local communities during this era. These tombs, spreading across the promontories and rocky terraces near Syracuse, are carved into bedrock with a precision that suggests long-developed craftsmanship and a conceptual understanding of structural integrity that seems surprising for a community not widely known for large-scale stone architecture in its domestic or defensive contexts. What do you think enabled a Bronze Age community to create tombs so sophisticated that they seem far beyond their era? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The standout feature of these tombs is the elaborate internal planning. The chambers are not crudely excavated hollows, but intricately designed spaces with deliberate spatial organization, entrances shaped to control physical and symbolic access, and interior compartments intended to house successive burials. Many of the tombs employ a tholos-like form with domed interiors reminiscent of Aegean funerary architecture, yet they differ in proportions in the techniques used to achieve the curvature and stability of the ceiling and in the integration of multiple rooms branching from a primary chamber. The act of carving such multi-chambered systems into compact limestone required both knowledge of the rock's mechanical properties and an ability to anticipate how weight and pressure would distribute across the interior. This was not mere craft, it demanded engineering intuition. The workers would have needed to maintain consistent ceiling thickness, smooth curvature, and structurally sound support points while expanding the internal space outward from a narrow entry shaft. The precision suggests some form of planning, whether drawn, measured, or learned through generational experience, that contradicts assumptions about the simplicity of local Bronze Age building traditions. The mystery deepens when one considers that these tombs, despite their sophistication, appear in a cultural environment where above-ground architecture remained comparatively modest. There are no megalithic temples, no monumental palaces, no fortifications that match the deliberate engineering seen underground. This paradox has led scholars to speculate that the people of Thapsos invested their most refined technological knowledge into the domain of the dead, implying that funerary spaces, not the living settlements, were the true centers of symbolic authority. Yet even with this interpretation, the technical leap is difficult to explain. Multi-chambered tombs require not just effort, but coordinated labor and social organization, indicating a community with established hierarchies and access to skilled artisans, capable of replicating a standardized design across numerous tombs. The tombs also reveal an unusual layering of cultural influences. While certain architectural elements resemble Mycenaean styles, especially the tholos-like interiors, and the doorway shaping the overall execution is distinct enough to suggest that these are not simple imitations. Instead, they appear to represent a hybrid form, local funerary traditions reformulated through the selective adoption of Aegean concepts, but executed with tools, skills, and symbolic priorities unique to Sicily. The multi-chambered format reinforces this hybridity. Mycenaean tholoi rarely include multiple lateral rooms. Levantine burial caves sometimes do, but seldom with this geometric regularity. Cypriot tombs display multi-room arrangements, yet their construction techniques differ. Thapsos stands at an archaeological crossroads where resemblances abound, but direct lineage cannot be confidently traced. The question remains, who taught the Thapsos community to carve in this manner, or did they develop the method independently through trial adaptation and cultural contact? Inside the tombs, the placement of burials and grave goods further emphasizes the significance of the architectural complexity. The multiple rooms likely functioned as generational repositories where successive members of a lineage were interred over time, their bones reorganized or moved to secondary niches as new bodies were added. Such treatment indicates an understanding of spatial management within the tomb, implying the builders anticipated long-term use. The symbolic weight of this planning cannot be overstated. A tomb that accommodates generations is an architectural expression of continuity, authority, and identity. The careful division of space may correspond to ritual stages of burial, with thresholds marking transitions from the world of the living to intermediary zones, and finally to the realm of the ancestors. Yet the mystery intensifies because the society that created these intricate subterranean structures left behind remarkably ambiguous cultural signatures. Their settlements do not clearly reflect the same level of hierarchical organization implied by the tomb engineering. Their tools, while competent, do not display extraordinary complexity. Their ceramics show strong foreign influences but do not reveal a native leap in technical innovation. And their disappearance or cultural transformation toward the close of the Bronze Age is too abrupt for a community invested in such sophisticated mortuary architecture. It is as though their most advanced knowledge was confined exclusively to the production of tombs. Archaeologists examining tool marks inside the chambers have noted patterns suggesting consistent use of metal chisels, perhaps bronze implements with alloy compositions more effective for limestone. But the absence of workshops or debris fields associated with large-scale stonework leaves unexplained how a specialized craft tradition could be maintained in such isolation. Some tombs contain smooth, almost polished surfaces, hinting at finishing techniques that would require coordinated labor teams and tools that have not survived or been identified. Equally puzzling is the strategic placement of the tombs along trade-friendly coastlines. This location, advantageous for maritime interaction, suggests that the Thapsos community functioned within larger economic networks, yet they chose to invest their greatest architectural effort into monuments hidden beneath the earth. They traded with Mycenaean Greece, Cyprus, and the Levant, evidenced by imported pottery, bronze goods, and exotic materials found within the chambers, but they did not create above-ground structures comparable to the grand architecture of those regions. Instead, their most technically advanced works remain invisible unless one descends into the necropolis. This raises questions about their societal structure. Perhaps they were not a unified kingdom, but a network of elite families, vying for prestige through exceptional funerary displays. Or perhaps the multi-chambered tombs served as a political and ritual anchor for a community whose identity centered on ancestral continuity rather than territorial power. The disappearance of this tomb tradition is one of the most perplexing aspects. It declines rapidly near the end of the Bronze Age, replaced by simpler burial customs that do not replicate the complex spatial logic of earlier tombs. No transitional forms exist. No evidence points to catastrophic destruction. It seems the technique, the knowledge, and the symbolic system behind the tombs faded within a short span. How does an entire body of technical knowledge capable of producing multi-chambered subterranean architecture vanish so abruptly? Was it tied to a particular lineage, artisan, guild, or ideological system that collapsed? Or did new cultural influences override the older traditions so completely that the engineering expertise was no longer valued? In the end, the Thapsos Megara Hyblaia tombs remain a silent testament to a society whose architectural brilliance is visible only in the realm of the dead. The multi-chambered tombs represent far more than burial spaces. They embody a mastery of planning, excavation, and spatial design that appears anomalous relative to the broader archaeological context of Sicily during the Bronze Age. They stand as evidence of a paradox, a community capable of engineering feats that surpass expectations, yet one that left behind few traces explaining how such knowledge emerged, how it was practiced, and why it ultimately disappeared. The tombs endure, carved into limestone, meticulously shaped and defiantly complex, offering only the enduring mystery of a people whose greatest technological achievements lie hidden beneath the surface, preserved in darkness, waiting for explanations that remain out of reach. The Jiaohe ancient city preservation is regarded as one of the strangest and most compelling proofs of ancient architecture's ability to survive the ravages of time, climate, and history. In the arid Turpan Valley, where summer heat can scorch the ground like fire, and winter winds cut through the air like blades, Jiaohe still stands tall like a fossilized city, a lingering silhouette of a once brilliant civilization now eroded from human memory. Its survival is not merely a stroke of natural fortune, but evidence of a mysterious, unparalleled construction technique. In the world, the method of carving directly into loess soil, creating structures over 2 millennia old that miraculously retain their shape, layout, and integrity to this day. This makes Jiaohe one of the best naturally preserved archaeological sites in Asia, perhaps even globally, while raising countless questions that modern science still struggles to answer. The durability of buildings carved straight from the earth itself provokes deep curiosity. Did the ancient inhabitants of Turpan possess advanced knowledge of soil, physics, structural compression, and natural mechanics far beyond what we assume? What do you think allowed the city of Jiaohe to survive for more than 2 millennia without collapsing? Share your thoughts in the comments below. To grasp the strangeness of this technique, one must imagine that Jiaohe wasn't built with brick, stones, or timber like most famous ancient cities. Instead of transporting materials, the ancestors chose to carve directly into a massive low-S plateau, shaping houses, palaces, temples, streets, and even large-scale military structures. They didn't erect walls, they removed earth to reveal precise, balanced, solid voids. This absence of assembly created a rare advantage. The entire city became a single monolithic mass, exceptionally resilient to wind, minor rainfall, and rapid temperature changes. In Turpan's extremely arid climate, the loess gradually hardened, creating natural durability, rivaling or surpassing many modern materials. This explains why, despite war, harsh climate, and centuries of abandonment, Jiaohe still displays astonishingly pristine outlines. The technique is so sophisticated that modern scientists have repeatedly attempted to replicate the structural stability of such monolithic earthen architecture, but consistently struggle, making Jiaohe a formidable challenge for archaeology and construction engineering. Seen from above, the entire city stretches along a narrow plateau, shaped like a giant blade, cutting between 2 ancient rivers, creating steep drops into deep valleys, and rendering Jiaohe nearly immune to ancient military assault. Yet even more remarkable is how the structures remain stable atop this exposed ridge, despite swirling winds, shifting sands, and minor geological vibrations. Loess-based architecture, when mishandled, can collapse easily under heavy rain or mild tremors. But Jiaohe defies this. Its thick walls, carved precisely according to the soil's natural compression layers, reveal that its ancient builders perfectly understood the load-bearing capacity of each stratum. They knew which angle, which direction, and which depth to carve to ensure the structure wouldn't stress itself into collapse. Modern people derive such insights from soil mechanics, geological surveys, and digital modeling. Yet 2,000 years ago, people without machines achieved this with uncanny accuracy. Many experts believe Jiaohe reflects not only technical knowledge, but also a refined observational intelligence, an intuitive understanding of nature, once possessed by earlier civilizations but lost over time. Why do the walls, columns, and corridors maintain their shapes despite lacking wooden or metal reinforcement? The answer may lie in the continuous top-down carving method, allowing the city to take shape as a work of architectural sculpture rather than conventional construction. This ensured that each structure became an uninterrupted extension of the parent earth mass, eliminating joints prone to cracking. The newly carved voids naturally balance themselves, distributing force evenly across the whole. Some scholars call this negative construction, since instead of adding materials, the builders removed what was unnecessary, like sculptors shaping stone. But unlike solid stone, loess is unpredictable. The only way to prevent collapse is complete mastery of its behavior. The mystery deepens when we realize there are no ancient documents describing this technique, no diagrams, no manuals from the Jushi people or other early Turpan inhabitants. So where did the knowledge come from? Was it ancestral experience or a specialized science driven by environmental necessity? Whatever the truth, the silence of historical records only magnifies Jiaohe's reputation as a feat beyond modern expectations. Beyond residential buildings, Jiaohe's religious remnants, including monasteries, Buddhist stupas, and meditation chambers carved into the earth, also employ the same less carving technique. Astonishingly, many stupas still retain their circular or polygonal shapes, despite being carved entirely from soil without brick reinforcement. Dome-like structures, extremely difficult to form from loose earth, have survived more than 2,000 years without collapsing, proving the ancient builders' deep understanding of gravity and soil compression. Some experts claim the loess dome-making technique at Jiaohe is nearly irreproducible today through traditional means unless reinforced with modern hardening technology. This leads to further speculation. Did the ancient builders possess construction methods now lost to history? And if their techniques were so advanced, might the civilization that once thrived here have been far more sophisticated than surviving records suggest? Another layer of enigma surrounds the fact that Jiaohe shows no evidence of sudden catastrophic collapse. Although affected by warfare during the Western Han Tang dynasty and later Mongol advances, most structures were neither burned nor left with layers of ash or major archaeological debris. Many scholars believe Jiaohe's downfall wasn't caused by a single tragedy, but resulted from prolonged abandonment, shifting trade routes, and increasingly harsh climate conditions. Yet even after human life faded, the loess architecture remained silent across the desert, almost as if it had merged with the earth itself. Today, the preservation of Jiaohe faces significant difficulties. Although the dry climate once protected the city for millennia, modern environmental changes and human impact are accelerating erosion. Specialists must employ extremely delicate reinforcement techniques to avoid altering the original monolithic structures. They must control tourist flow and environmental vibrations to prevent cracks in the already aging architecture. Preserving Jiaohe is unlike maintaining ordinary ruins. Rather than safeguarding scattered building materials, experts must protect a colossal sculpture, an entire negative city carved into the ground where even a small crack might expand rapidly. They must also study ancient techniques to strengthen or restore structures without violating the logic of the original builders. For these reasons, the Jiaohe ancient city preservation is not merely the safeguarding of a ruin, but an ongoing quest to decode a technical secret more than 2,000 years old. Every wall, corridor, and stairway silently testifies to the extraordinary natural intelligence of ancient people. The less carving technique not only allowed the city to outlast time, but has positioned it as a unique case study in global architectural history. Modern humans may build skyscrapers, but recreating a monolithic Earth city that endures for 2 millennia remains utterly beyond our capacity. Thus, Jiaohe stands not only as a preserved relic, but as a challenge. Do we truly understand the capabilities of ancient civilizations, or do the carved voids in this lost plateau still conceal secrets the modern world is not yet prepared to uncover?